I'd like to welcome everybody that's in attendance today to the October 21st meeting of the HPC. If you don't already have one, there should be copies of the agenda towards the back of the room. We have quite a heavy load today. We'll try and make our best effort to move through them as quickly as possible, as taking everybody's time in consideration. We will first discuss the consent agenda, or take a vote on the consent agenda from the September 16th meeting, the administrative COAs and new owners list for August 2019. Do we hear a motion to approve as submitted?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. The records show that that has been taken care of. Are you ready to move into the list now? Great. So we'll make our way through the action items for the COAs that have been submitted. As I call the address, if you would, a representative for the address, please come forward at the table, state your name and your residential address for the record, and a brief outline of what the project entails, and then we'll start asking questions from there. So the first property up is 109 Capel Street.
I'm Victoria Bartholomew. I'm at 1220 Main Street, Apartment C. So we're working on a whole house renovation at 109 Capel Street. I'm here mainly because there was an issue with our demo guys, and they removed the asphalt siding before that we officially gave them the go-ahead to do it. It looks very exciting. The original wood siding is underneath the asphalt siding. And so the plan is to restore that using as much of the original intact siding as possible, and just repairing where it's either completely rotted out or broken apart.
Great. The commissioners have questions, comments, concerns?
That's pretty straightforward.
Mary?
And she's doing what is the preferred thing,
Yes.
so.
I applaud your effort.
Yeah, thanks.
Agreed. Agreed. Do we have a motion?
I would move that we approve that.
Okay.
I'll second.
Have a first and a second. Any further questions, comments? Hearing none, we'll call for a vote. All those in favor of approving the COA as submitted?
Aye.
Aye. Having none opposed, shows a pass. You're ready to go.
Great. Thank you very much.
Victoria, we appreciate you coming back in.
Thanks.
Next property, 810 10th Street. We have a representative from 810 10th
I actually
Street.
saw her this morning. She said she may be a little late. She had to go pick someone up, so.
Very good. So we'll hold on this one and move along, and if we need to sneak that one back in at some point, we can. Next up, 721 Court Street.
Hello, my name is Thomas Thompson. I'm here as a representative for Isabel McMahon. She had a death in her family in France, and so she's in France right now. But any questions that you have, I think most of this is about the chimney stacks that were on the building, the roof repair. I communicated with Troy Brown this morning, the roofer for Craftsman, who's doing the job, and he said they are not changing anything, but to repair the substructure that's underneath it. But I don't know if you have the pictures, a close-up of it, but three of the stacks were probably 12 to 13 degrees all vertical because the substructure had gotten so bad. So he has taken the pots off. They're safe and they're secure. They're going to repair the substructure and fix it, and then put the original masonry finish back on it, and then reset the pots as they were before.
Oh, wow.
So they're not gonna do the metal ones?
No, they decided against them.
Okay.
He decided, I mean, they're about 300 pounds apiece, but he decided it would be just better to go back with those. So right now, the biggest thing was he was concerned, one, with safety, because they were pretty much leaning pretty bad, and the structure beneath was pretty deteriorated.
Right.
So he took them down, they're secured, and they're going to repair and rebuild the substructure, and then they're going to replace them and refinish the substructure back to the finish that it was before.
There's two of these, correct?
Yes.
Two? On the one pillar, there is three pots, and then on the other pillar, there's two pots, man.
So he's restoring them in kind, basically.
Well, with the original pots, we managed to get them down without doing any damage to them. So from what I understand, as soon as the substructure is rebuilt, then he's gonna set the original pots back up.
Okay. They just won't be functional, it's just.
They've never been functional,
Aesthetic.
not since she's had the building,
Oh,
man.
but it was sealed up at some point.
It was sealed up
Okay.
at some point.
Has he already done the substructure?
They're working on the substructure as we speak because without repairing those, there's no point in him doing the slate work beneath that level with the danger of those things falling over. So he wants to get those fixed first, and then he can finish up the slate on that level.
And I just want you to be aware, I hope your mason understands that this is probably a lime-based mortar and not,
Yep.
okay.
Calvin Nolan from L&N Masonry is the one doing our masonry work for us.
Okay.
And Calvin has done a pretty good bit of work on a lot of the older buildings around town. I think he's pretty good up to speed on stucco and stuff. So, but I'll make sure that he's aware of that.
Yeah, because you'll end up with the same problem.
Yes, absolutely.
All right.
Okay.
But that's where we're at on that, as far as I understand. So it was never. I think Isabel misunderstood. She's a little lost sometimes when it comes to American nuance, being from France, and so she thought that because she was trying to repair them, that was an issue. But I think
Okay.
she just misunderstood it.
Okay. Right.
So I'll move to approve, not the application, but what was said at the meeting, that they are being repaired and restored in kind.
Yes, this was done as an after-the-fact COA. She had done the work.
Oh.
And it was our understanding that there were going to be some changes, that they were functional, but they were being replaced with non-functional, which is why I went before you.
Well, this thing has been, the heating, that was the old chimney stacks from the original coal furnaces.
Yeah.
And those haven't been in use in 100 years or
Right.
better, man. I mean, it's been HVAC for as long as she's had the building, and I know that's been 8 or so years. I don't know what they would be functional for.
Right. Okay. Very good. So we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any other questions, comments, concerns regarding the COA? No? All those in favor?
All right.
Hearing none opposed, we're ready to keep
All right,
at it.
I'd give you thanks for Isabel.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Best to her as well. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, ladies.
Was that 810? Okay, perfect. Next, we'll call up 810 10th Street. 810 10th Street? Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, if you would just state your name and address for the record, please.
Roberta Grooms, 1007 Federal Street for 810 10th Street.
Perfect. And the nature of the work that we're looking at here?
Replacing, putting back the old windows that came out of the 10th Street house.
Okay, replacing windows. Does anyone have any questions regarding the COA as it's submitted?
I make a move to pass, or to approve the COA as submitted to restore the existing windows.
So the COA was for restoring the 2 windows that were already replaced, but also for future windows too?
Correct.
Okay. So replacements in kind, okay.
No, restore, right?
I think there was a variety
a
of
couple
repair and replace.
that
So
are
go to
repair.
the chart.
A couple that are repair and replace and others that are replace.
Oh, okay, well,
But they're being, the replacements are replacing in kind.
Yes.
All wood.
Mm-hmm.
which ones are being replaced?
According to the chart,
Facing Federal Street, the Federal Street side, there are I think 2 that are being replaced with wood. And 1 on Jackson Street side.
but they're
And
all
1
gonna
on
be
10th
replaced with
Street.
wood, is that
Yeah, they're,
correct?
yes, exactly. I think it's almost half and half of it.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3,
But they-
4. for repair and for replace in kind.
All right, well, I guess I misunderstood you when I was there this morning. I thought you said you were restoring all the windows. That was my
Replacing
understanding.
the two that I put the vinyl on.
The
That's
one
what-
that was already vinyl is being replaced?
Yes.
Is that window gone?
No, I haven't.
Okay.
But it's existing as vinyl.
Well, she replaced it. She
No, I'm
took-
putting
took it out,
the old windows back
replaced it,
in.
and then she got to work order to stop. Okay. My understanding was that you were putting the old one back.
Yes,
You are putting the old one back?
yes.
So which ones are you replacing with a new window?
The windows that, the whole sash is broken, and I've numbered them up there.
And how many windows is that? 4?
They're listed.
It's 4.
Well, okay. That, I misunderstood that, so I have to,
Is it replaced because they're gone?
well, see, I never looked at them because she said she was restoring them. I thought you said that. Apparently I misunderstood that.
The two windows that I was cited for was the ones that I put vinyl on. And that's what we're here for, is those two, to replace those two, and put the same back, the wood windows back.
The applicant,
Repaired and put it back in place.
correct
Yeah.
me if I'm wrong, though, you're also applying to work
Yeah,
on
when
other
I-
windows too.
Yeah,
So
'cause
we're talking about, actually, she can put the old sashes back in the ones that were replaced anyway, because that's correcting a violation of the zoning ordinance. What you guys need to consider is this application, the repair and the replacement.
Are these two separate applications, or are they all in?
Well, she doesn't need an application to just repair the existing windows.
Right. But she's also replacing 4 windows
Correct.
Yes.
with new windows.
With new wooden
New
windows, yep.
windows.
So we'd have, so I would say we'd have to see which, look at which windows she's, with the condition of the windows she wants to replace, which I didn't
There's-
see.
they're-
And second,
they're here.
we'd have to see the window, know exactly which window she's replacing it with. Yeah, and I didn't see that in person. I mean, it looks pretty bad from here, but,
All right.
but we also need, do you know which window you're replacing it with? What make, manufacturer?
No, not what manufacturer is, it would be the wood windows, put back in.
Okay.
The same as
Because we
that's
wouldn't
coming
need
out.
to, we would need to see that, exactly which window you're using, so we can determine whether or not that's, see, there are certain windows that are accepted they're accepted by historic standards, and there are others that are not, for various reasons.
And which ones would that be before I go and purchase a window or have a window made? I need to know specifically what you're talking about.
Okay. The advocate, I guess, for your, who is that?
That's me.
Oh, that's you. Oh, there you go. You can help her. Geldwin's one of them. But even with Geldwin, there's certain ones that are and certain ones that aren't.
Yeah, we've created, is that list been created as we've moved through past submissions of windows that have been approved?
There was one on Capel,
We've got
I
a
think
list of
we approved.
contractors, we don't have a list of products. I would think that's a case-by-case basis that you want to consider, because on each of these houses, the windows are different.
Yeah, because they change all the time. Manufacturers change, their historic standards change. So there's a number of window manufacturers that do this. One that I think is reasonable is Geldwin. And they have a window that is accepted as a historic window. There are others also. Anderson, I believe, makes one. But those two could, be a starter for you. And both of those, I believe, you can buy from either Home Depot or Lowe's, so.
Can you
local.
go back to the chart, just so I understand something? There you've got repair and paint, caulk 4 windows, and replace 4 windows. Are the two windows you're putting back two of the ones that are being replaced, or two of the ones that are just being repaired on this chart?
That I'm putting back now.
Mm-hmm.
They're the same windows that came out, that was vinyl that I put up. That
But
was
which ones
vinyl.
are they on this chart?
Two on the bottom right, Federal Street side.
Okay.
Down there, replace
So those
and
two-
paint.
So that's just replaced.
So those two are just being put back, so there's really only two that you're gonna be replacing
That's right.
new,
That's
okay.
exactly, yeah, actually, that's right. Good catch.
Oh, there's only two.
So there's only two
I'm
that
really
are actually
confused.
being replaced.
I thought there was four. So,
I'm confused.
Well, two of those four are the ones that are original.
Two
so-
are original windows, which you
That had been
eventually will
taken out.
have to replace as well.
Right.
To make four.
okay.
I think they say replace because Ms. Grooms was thinking about replacing it with the originals. You're
Right.
taking out the vinyl, you're replacing what's there right now.
Exactly.
So that's why it says replace. So really
how
it's
many
not.
windows are going to be new?
Two.
Two.
Two. And where are they located on the building? Which ones are those?
The
On
middle
the
one
Jackson
on
Street side.
Which side?
Jackson Street.
the left side of Jackson
Jackson
Street
Street's
and then
behind
the
you?
center one on 10th Street.
Is that Jackson's behind you, correct?
Yes,
Okay.
Which is which? Was that the two
So that.
in the
that-
white wall?
Yeah, where that, yeah, see, okay, put your little
Yeah, I
hand on that
believe
white, okay,
this
that's 10th Street, correct?
Correct.
The
And then,
brick side is Federal, and behind the brick is,
yeah,
Jackson.
Jackson. This is
Jackson.
the Jackson Street side down here.
okay. So you see all three sides, well, I don't know if you see them, they may be obscured, but all three sides technically would be visible from 10th Street. So I think the two that are being replaced are the ones that we need to look at.
Replaced with new.
Yeah, the ones that you want to replace with new, we'd have to see those.
But the other work.
But the other work
commence.
you can proceed with, I think. So how would we put that in a motion? To table the other two and,
Let's go back to the chart. Because one of them is even just the bottom sash there.
Uh-huh.
So she's just
Um,
replacing the bottom side.
Google Street View and show them.
So the only thing that's being completely replaced is that top one, just one.
okay, and the one
Correct.
that needs a bottom sash, there are people that can just, make you a new bottom sash to fit
Exactly.
that window too.
yes.
So,
And if they're making that bottom sash to match, then they could just make the two new windows to match as well at the same time.
yeah.
That'd be would seem to be
Most
the
cost-
simplest and
cost
easiest.
effective, yeah.
Because if they're matching that one, all they gotta do is replicate it twice and do the upper and lower sash.
Right.
Yeah, that would work very nicely.
Yeah.
Then at least they'd be all consistent.
Oh, they will be. You all confused
So
me.
could
I
your
don't know.
motion change to be if they're matching the sash, then it's,
Why don't you go ahead and, if you want to make the motion, because I kind of canceled mine.
all right, so it would seem like the motion would be to approve the replacement of the two original on
Federal.
Federal Street. To approve the sash being repaired to match. And to approve the remaining windows to match that same sash / existing windows.
The remaining one window,
Right,
and the rest are all being restored.
Yeah,
Mhm.
the rest are just being repaired.
yeah, and approve the rest being repaired in place.
I second that.
We have a motion and a second. Are there any questions, comments, clarification needed, anything of that nature?
I just want to make sure that you understand what we're saying, because a moment ago you said you didn't.
I understand, but you all didn't understand what,
Yeah,
Yeah.
we missed a little
Okay,
bit in the
fair
other
enough.
part.
I'm very plain,
Okay,
yeah.
thank you.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, looks like we're good to begin the work. Thank you
Thank you,
so
ma'am.
much. Next up, we have 1206 Rivermont Avenue.
Afternoon.
Hello.
My name is Peter Bowman, live at 108 Clopton Court here in Lynchburg. And the request is to put up a sign on the building I use as my man cave, basically, because it looks ugly without something in that indented space. So my intent is to make it look like a period Harley-Davidson dealership. So I've been working with McBride Signs. We mocked it up on a computer, and this is basically what it would look like. Letters will be hand-painted. Sign will itself be metal because you just can't do wood in that dimensions anymore. There's just nothing available.
You already submitted colors with this, didn't you?
Yeah, it's basically the same colors as on the building itself. I'm assuming they can get sign paint in those same colors or are very, very close, but yeah.
Should be.
Well, now, that's the proposed color?
Pardon me?
That's the proposed, right here.
The sign, that's all a mock-up up at the top. The building itself is already painted. So
Oh,
it's
it
only
is.
the sign at the top that is,
Okay.
that's the Photoshop tag.
So you already painted it these colors?
Yeah, the bottom is already painted.
I go by there every day, I missed that one.
Wake up.
Okay. So this is just about the sign then?
Just the sign, yes. Yeah, the body paint for the building was approved last March or April, I forget what it was, something like that.
Were those, the previous slide, were those fonts you were considering?
Yeah, well, as close as we can get, right, those are some of the ones that are actually on that, the Photoshop sign are pretty much what we've come up with.
What you've come
And they
up
are sort of a combination of some of these.
Sure. Okay.
I move to approve the application as submitted.
Second.
Any other questions, comments, concerns? Hearing none, call for a vote. All those in favor?
Thank you.
All right.
Hearing none opposed, you're ready to go.
Great, thank you.
Make it work. It looks
Thanks, folks.
great. Thank you.
Make sure you put in a zoning application also for your sign.
Pardon me?
Make sure you put in a zoning application.
Yeah, that was my next step, once I got it approved here, I've already.
I didn't want because Chris said go for it.
I
You
got to
go,
do that.
go
next
get
time.
it.
One thing at a time before I pay that
Yep.
$50 fee or whatever.
Yep.
Great, thank you, folks.
Thank you. Next up, we have 218 Capel Street. Hello.
Good afternoon. We're Stephen and Danielle Kozakowski here for 218 Capel Street. We are looking at, on the back porch that's not facing any road. As you can see, the red line right there, it's sagging in the middle and it looks like it might be unsafe. We just want to be able to put in a support column there to add it for safety, paint it in light kind colors with what's already there. And also all of that, the railing, the two different railings right there, the historical railing, we want to actually continue that along the entire side to keep in the historical features of the property as well too.
Does that, the historically accurate side, does it need repair as well?
It does need
Just some of the
repair.
balusters? or-
Yes,
okay.
yes, the balusters, yeah, we would definitely be looking to repair those and restore them in like kind as well.
Okay.
So all the ladders will disappear?
On the top half.
On the top half, yes.
Now, there were some other things on this, refill the driveway with pea gravel.
Those were done at this.
Oh,
Yeah, first step that was already done is just restoring it, making it
Okay,
in like
super.
kind, yeah. We're trying to keep everything as closely as it can be to what it was already done, but the column definitely needs to happen for support reasons for safety.
Oh,
So
sure.
We definitely, if anything that was added, we saw that we needed to put in an application, so we want to make sure that we follow the proper steps.
So it's the rail and the column.
The rail and the column, yes, sir.
And there was something about air conditioning?
That was already approved.
Yeah, that's taken care of.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
but-
move that the application be approved as submitted.
second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. I do have a question. Where, that second column that you're bringing down,
Yes, sir.
is
That-
it just in the middle of a walk space, or will it tie into that?
It's more in a it's
Rail
not tied
along.
into the railing,
Okay.
It's a couple feet off from the
Oh,
rails
but there's
itself.
still walk space.
Okay.
Yeah, there's ample walk space, it's just, yeah, if you see it
has to
super
be.
close, it has to be done,
We
yeah.
looked into
exactly.
trying to tie it into the railing, but it wouldn't give it the support where it
Yeah.
needed for the
Right.
roof line.
Okay.
And I would encourage you to look at where that column is gonna come down, instead of just sitting on the deck,
Right.
that there's gonna need to, something underneath it.
Support underneath, yes.
to
We've
go
already
all the
talked
way
to the
ground.
contractor about it.
Okay,
Yes, sir,
good.
absolutely.
Good, good.
Yeah, we're trying to do things as up to
Okay.
code and.
There
think
is
as
probably
possible.
something there already. I think they took it out when they added this extension deck.
They probably
It
did.
looks like it, because on the top are like nail marks where it looks like something was,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
Okay. Great. Any other questions, comments? Hearing none, call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Hearing none opposed, we're ready to go.
Thank you so much, guys. Thank you for your time.
Thank you all.
Appreciate it.
Next up, 3128 Rivermont Avenue.
This is a bunch.
Yeah.
Do we want to do this one last?
I think we've got a couple that are, we'll
Okay, we'll just.
we'll churn through them. Yeah.
Only reason that there are two applications on the agenda is because of the timing between the two of them.
Please.
Hi, we're Holly and Tom Mellis, 3128 Rivermont, and we've got a few things and we'd like to talk about.
Excellent.
I don't know what you have on there first, which one?
Let's see.
Ceiling.
Have-
Porch ceiling.
On the cottage behind the main house, there's 3 porches. There's the sun, that is the front
Front.
entry porch, like there. Then there is a sun porch, which is that ceiling there. And then there is a right porch, which is not slatted, it's solid. And that's the only one that there's no wasps that keep making nests in there and coming out and stinging no matter what time of day or night. And we would like to replace the other 2 slatted ceilings with solid, so they're all compatible. And so people don't get stung morning and night. That's part of it first.
This is the cottage that's behind the main house.
Yeah, there's a map I have in the application that shows how far back on the lot line it is. If you see
What
where,
you see from the street.
if you see where the arrow is, it's all the way back there.
And it's not, it was built with the house, and this, and these kind of.
Some more pictures.
are a defining
Nope.
feature of those Victorian houses.
And it was built in nineteen.
Town records say 1955. And it doesn't look anything like the shed on the property or like the main house. If you look at the architecture,
Yeah.
if you go back toward the beginning, you'll see. It may be on the other application,
I think it's on the other one.
yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't really look, we couldn't figure any style that it was.
I'm sorry, did you say it was built in 1955?
That's what the town and tax records say.
1955?
55.
That's the town and tax records say.
That should be corrected. I don't believe that is the date. There have been modifications to this building that may have been done 50s, 60s, we don't really know. But
We have asked the
there were
town.
indications on that house that it was, in fact, in my opinion, was built when the original Victorian house was built. There are straps, ghost lines of the straps that used to be, I believe, for the carriage house doors that are on here, and also the windows that are on the house, not all of them, but most of them, pegged, mortise and tenon, and after World War II, they didn't have that type of construction on these windows. So, and this particular detail on the ceilings is indicative of houses built around late 1800s. So that really, these ceilings, I know they're probably an issue with the wasps, but they're indicative of that period, and they're really a defining feature of those houses of that period. And so that's one of the pieces of this building that are still intact from the original period. And even if this house was 1955, it still qualifies as historic structure. I'm working on one now with the Department of Historic Resources, 1956. So it's still considered that. But this house is, this building, I believe, was built with the original house as an outbuilding of some sort, probably for the carriages, something like that. Could have been for coal, could have been for anything. But there are indications, especially if you look at show the gable side of this building, those small windows up there, keep going, there you go. Those small windows next to the chimney, that's a clear indication right there, how that chimney is between them, you have those two small windows. That's definitely 19th century architecture there. So this building is definitely a lot older than 1955.
We asked the town, we asked the historic, we asked so many people if they could give us any documentation, because, we like to go by what is, required, but no one could give us anything beyond the tax records showing there was anything older than 1955.
Well, that may be. Did you look at the Sanborn map?
The what?
Sanborn maps?
Is that the
Sanborn
one that
maps,
the DHR has?
Excuse me?
Is that the one the DHR has?
No, the city may have them.
We
Sanborn
spoke-
maps are from 1800s, and that's what they used to use for tax records. I don't know if, I know Danville still has theirs, I think. I would assume, I don't know if they have them here or not, but if you go to the library.
Jones.
Jones, thank you. Jones Memorial Library, they might be able to help you with that. But I can assure you the building is older than 1955. I would pretty, if you go on the Sanborn maps, they'll show the original house if you can find it, and they'll have the outbuildings with it, and you'll probably see that one.
You won't be able to see what, actually what it looked like, but you'll just see it documented on that period on the map.
On the footprint.
And to be able to-
Yeah, just the footprint of it.
Okay. Well, meanwhile, you have one entry with a solid ceiling and the other two that aren't.
I guess that later porch, the wooden with the solid ceiling probably is a later porch that was
Yeah.
added. This house shows up in one of the Lynchburg history books when it was changed from
That's right.
its Victorian original construction to its modern, it was modernized during the
1940.
40 federal period, it was federalized.
And that's probably when all these
Yeah,
renovations.
and
on-
that, I would bet at that same time, this building was modernized as well. Obviously didn't need carriages anymore.
No one's got any permits on record for anything in this place, except for the kitchen that got burnt, or the porch that got burned in electrical fire.
Yeah.
We went way back.
Rick, I'm gonna ask you, as you may know, with that slatted underneath part, is there a way to put something solid under it and then put the slats back? Would that be acceptable?
I mean,
Huh?
It really should be a screen
Right.
above
Yeah.
the open. The reason the slats are there is, Rick and I were talking earlier, it's to breathe. If you seal that up, you're gonna end up with an enclosed space up there that's going to get super hot from the sun on the roof, and it's gonna sweat, and it's gonna rot from the inside out. You'll never see it rotting until something falls. So closing it, pulling the vented ceiling down and putting a solid ceiling, you're gonna create a future condition. It's not gonna be a year or two, but over time, that void space in there, interstitial space, is going to not breathe anymore. Where the wasps are living, it's not gonna breathe. But if, as you asked, if you pulled it down, put in a screen, copper screen, or a black mesh screen to keep the insects from going through, put the ceiling back, you'll retain the image, solve the wasp problem, and still keep the breathing capability of the porch ceiling so that it doesn't get that rot from the inside situation.
Meanwhile, you still have the other porch ceiling that's solid. So it's, a lot of this in that little building are very inconsistent. Yes,
Yeah.
there's old windows, but there's much newer replacement windows.
Yeah,
well, that's just because of different work that's been done during different periods.
prior to historic district. But I'd be willing to say that solid porch, as you noted, is a later addition when that renovation, when that 49 renovation happened, or even afterwards. Afterwards, they said, okay, now it's no longer housing carriages, it's a guest house, or it's our kid's house or something. They said, we need another porch. They popped it on, they just put a solid ceiling up, not looking at, not,
Not trying to duplicate.
yeah, not adding to what the original construction was.
It's just that they're inconsistent. It doesn't look nice, you know?
Unfortunately, for our point of view, as was pointed out last time, consistency is not what we're here to do. I mean, that's what
Well, I
we.
mean, I
It's
understand.
consistent with the historic.
Yeah, it has to be
Right.
historically correct, so the two that are correct, and the fact that another one's inconsistent, we can't make the two that are correct incorrect to be consistent with that. Does that
So
make-
we can't authorize a
And, you know,
physical
I-
change to it, to the look of it, but we can make a recommendation, as was stated, to put a screen on the inside of it to keep bugs out, which is the underlying problem.
And I understand your dilemma with that. I had one the same way. As a matter of fact, I was burning paint off the ceiling to clean it and caught it on fire. I mean, fire trucks, the whole shebang. And, you know, we got it out, but I mean, they're problematic in that respect. And that's what happened with me when I was burning it. I hit probably a nest up there and it heated up and started a fire. So don't ever do that, a recommendation. But, yeah, it's unfortunate that, unfortunately, they are a defining feature, and, but they are there for a purpose as well as decorative. And I would say that probably they're more for the purpose than the decorative part, is so they can breathe. So, as Emmett said, that, you know, you'd be solving one problem but creating another one that I think would be more devastating to the house than the wasp would be.
I don't see any rot or ruin by the solid ceiling, only see the rotting by the slatted ceiling edges.
Well, you know, different periods, different means of construction, different types of wood, all that sort of thing.
And they may have a vent, if that one is gabled, they may have a gable vent
Well,
allowing
that's
that.
It's just a
that little
flat
side
roof.
one.
They're flat, they're all
It's
flat.
just a flat room.
All
Yeah.
three are flat.
Okay.
When that was done, you may eventually have problems with that flat roof. My suggestion would be to change that flat roof to a slatted roof.
To get some ventilation in it.
Yeah, to get some ventilation up in there.
Yeah, it's never a good idea to enclose spaces like that.
That would also solve the consistency problem. I guess we kind of have to tackle these things as a whole, but one at a time. So if we need to keep notes on these.
We don't do a motion, right?
Are we gonna do separate motions on these, or?
Separate applications, they have to.
So we haven't discussed the second part of this, the porch posts. Do you want to go ahead and make a recommendation for the side of porch ceiling first and then move on to porch posts? Or would you like to go through that first and then do the items one by one?
Can we make a motion on each one of them
Yeah.
individually, so we won't forget them all by the time we get to the?
Okay,
No,
all
this
right.
first one is the ceiling and the
Oh.
columns.
And the
Oh,
columns.
okay, so
We
let's
just
go with
haven't
the col-
discussed
okay,
the
so
columns.
Yeah, we just
Look at the
do a
columns.
portion of it then. So the columns would be next, and that's replacing, and they're resting on either concrete or masonry
Yep.
bases, basically.
There's two different styles of posts. Some of them look to be original and some are not the same. And they're all rotting at the bottom.
Now, are those the same porch right here? Are these all the same, or are these different ones? Oh,
See the
okay.
side porch, front.
Oh, I got you.
And
Side.
I think that you said they were all rotting except for one that's actually against the house,
Yeah,
correct?
you'll see it right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's in the back. If you go, right next to the side that you see the vinyl building right in back there.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it's the bases?
The bases, and they're splitting on two of them on the top part.
Yeah, I mean,
Put them up on the, yeah.
I know we sent someone down there to look at it,
You,
Ron Sexton, and
Yeah.
he said these are very easily repairable, but yeah, you're right, they should be lifted up, but he can trim these, repair them, and then, you know, you can put them on, you know, he would put them on a protected base so that they wouldn't rot in the future.
Aluminum base.
The aluminum. porch.
Probably, I'm not sure, but, I mean, he's a preservationist and,
well, actually, both gentlemen that you referred us to were kind enough to come out and give us their opinions on that. One of them said it would cost more to cut off all the bottoms, do that, then just replacing them with them, like the one that, the last page of the application shows one of the places that they have the posts, and I saw one at, what's the place across from Home Depot, the other building place.
Oh,
They-
Taylor.
Yes, they have them too.
Yeah, I think some of these may be, we don't, without really examining them, these may be original to the house. So if the base is the only issue, then, honestly, I don't believe, I believe you, what you're saying, but I don't believe that what he's saying is that they would be cheaper to buy.
One of
new.
them said that.
Yeah, I'm sure he would, but but,
To sell a new one.
That's, you gotta take this in stride. A lot of contractors just wanna take the easy way out. But in this particular situation, we're not there to, and if you wanted to, if you told us, yes, the original, we always try to keep the original material as much as possible. And as from what I see of these posts, everything is good on the posts, and they're very salvageable. It's just that base part of it that needs to be looked at. And so I would say that these could also be easily restored.
Victoria, scroll back through the porch.
What did the second contractor say?
That would take a good amount of money and some time to get it done, and he would still recommend one of those aluminum things like that picture on that thing around the bottoms of them to avoid future, and the masonry would have to be repaired where it's got severe water damage in there. Those things are rusting on.
Well, that would have to be done anyway, regardless of which one you put in.
I'm looking at the one on the far left where it's up on a concrete base. Flip through the other pictures, there's one that's back away from, you can see the bases. So it looks like these have already been addressed over, at some point in time earlier, that they were rotting at the bottom. They cut the bottom off and they dropped in these concrete
That's right.
plops at the bottom to keep them off the ground. So, I don't know, again, Rick is right, they look very ornate up at the top, the chamfered detail. They look original to the building, as Rick said, and I think they did what you're looking to do now on these that are up on that base by chopping off the bottom and putting a new base under it to keep them rotting. So, the problem is gonna be, were you thinking of popping out that concrete, putting the column back to the length it was and putting the aluminum, or would these be replaced with?
That whole porch is rotted. All the framework is rotted, the stuff is splitting, and apparently, I guess nothing was ever pressure treated before it was painted. Everything is splitting in there. We were hoping to do something with like the baked aluminum around it, or anything that would keep us having to readdress this every 5 years.
Well, the reason this is being readdressed is because they didn't do it properly to begin with, and that's the case with a lot of things. They never should have set those wood columns on concrete, and that's the issue you have right now. So,
But otherwise, it's on top of the brick, and all those bottom frames are rotted. You put a knife in there, it stands.
Yeah, both of them, the aluminum, or there's a composite bottom that you can put to separate the wood from the masonry. 'Cause the moisture's just gonna wick straight through the masonry and up into the wood. And over time, you're correct. So one of the aluminum bases is definitely the way to go to separate the wood from the brick or the masonry at the bottom.
and I would think that they're not rotted enough. They're probably only just a surface rot that you can cut those at the level you need just to get that base under there.
You can poke your finger through them, and there's nothing in there.
How high up can you do that?
Right where the concrete is, right there.
Yeah, right at the bottom?
Yeah.
Yeah. But again, to do it correctly, the concrete should come out and the column should be longer, back down to its original length.
Yeah, if you look at the left-hand side there, I'm sure in the original application, the bottom looked just like the top.
Yeah.
So if we continue to hack off bits of the bottom, how badly are we authorizing butchering these things to?
Well,
You know.
what it's doing is going to preserve them. What's the height of those from that concrete pier up, do you know?
I think I put that in the dimensions. I think it's less than, I think 72, maybe 80. I put that in one of the specs there. Depends. If they're mounted on the wood, I think they're 6. If they're not, I think they're 7 or 8.
And I guess it depended on how badly they were rotted.
Yeah,
In
I
that
guess-
picture right there, the
One shorter.
two in
Yeah,
the
all
the two in
different
the
types of
front
heights
are
there.
shorter, the one on the
Yeah.
side is longer.
They're all different. Every single post on that house is a different height.
So they just built the,
Yeah.
they built the concrete
built the concrete.
block up there,
Yeah.
just high enough to.
Depending on how much rot was there
Rot was
before.
there, exactly. Hi.
But you're not, but you have no intention of taking the concrete piers out?
All the prices we've gotten on trying to fix this house so to correct the violations the tenant filed the city are worth more than the realtor said the house would go for in the market. We can't put that kind of money into this. It would be irresponsible. We've got stuff on the main house, windows and things we've got to handle, waterproofing and other things. It doesn't, it's putting to us good money after bad.
But those, the replacement columns that you had spec'd out on that spec sheet, were they
That tall.
just coming down to that height or bringing
They
them
were
all the way
as
down?
tall as that one in the middle. And they have, they proportionally, the height dimensions, they offer them, I think, in 6 different heights.
Okay.
Those posts, which
So
are the
that, say
kind that
that
are
big
used.
block in the front, that was gonna come out and they would be the
We
same?
could do that, because on the side porch, those same style of posts, that's what they apparently
Right.
did.
Right.
And then they would all look the same.
Are they wood or aluminum?
They would, because
They're
the
wood.
stall on the
Replacement
last
would be
page of that thing,
The
it's the exact
replacement.
same style as they have at that wood place across
So
from
does
Home
she say
Depot
she's
and
not replacing
on the
any of
front,
these
on the
piers?
side
She
porch and the front
is,
porch,
bringing
same
it
style.
back.
And the
to the
replacements were
Wood.
metal and wood?
She is.
The aluminum bottom
Oh,
thing,
so the wood columns,
they're all wood, they just have that little
the aluminum
aluminum
base.
thing at the bottom. Right.
I apologize for this. I have to ask this again because I'm a little confused. Those concrete piers, there's 3 of them there. The 2 in the back and the one in the front, which is a different height. Are those staying or going?
If we can have them all the same, because we were told to restore them would cost more than to get new and knock out the concrete.
But you have gotten an estimate to take out the concrete and
They
replace.
didn't give us a written one. Everything was oral with these guys. They don't write anything up until you agree to do the work. They didn't put it in writing.
So, just to reiterate, you're talking about taking out the concrete and putting in posts that are all the
That
same
was
size.
one option that we were offered that would be less expensive than the restoring of all those rotted posts. Because every single post is rotted except for that one in the back on the wall that doesn't go down to the ground.
And what would the replacement turn posts look like?
The ones on the side entry and the front entry. Yeah. No, not those. Yeah, like that, which is the same style as those 2 entrances have.
And if you took the concrete piers out, what would the post be sitting on?
The
that
brick.
metal base,
The
the
metal
aluminum
base.
Well, the
base.
metal base has to sit on something. What is-
On the brick floor.
So you'd replace the concrete piers with brick.
The brick is already
Brick's already there.
Brick's under the
Concrete's
there.
sitting on top of it.
Oh, the concrete's sitting on top of the brick?
They
Yes.
basically just dropped in
Yeah,
concrete to.
to fill in the
The
post
gap.
that used to be there.
Okay.
A bag of concrete.
Well, I mean, the posts that are there are still a distinct style. These are, off-the-shelf posts.
Go back to what the posts are gonna look like if you replace them.
That right there.
And they're already on the side and
Oh,
front
okay.
entrances, that style.
That style is there?
On the front
already
and
been
side
used.
entrances.
Yeah.
It's just on the sun porch that they don't have them.
See it?
So those were probably added during the 50s or.
There you
And I
go, you
should've
had
printed- I
them.
didn't print that off when I printed those.
Those.
Yeah, and the originals are much more distinct. I mean, you know, if anyone wants to make a motion, I mean, my opinion is that the ones that are there should be restored. You know, the ones that are there, if, I mean, done properly, you take the piers out, the brick piers, you replace the base to them. They can marry those very successfully. You'd never even know they were married, but
But you would, because the rest of those things have been painted and flaked so much, you would have a smooth part on the bottom half.
ma'am, if you got the right guy doing it, I guarantee you, you would never see it. I've had it done. You wouldn't see
They
it.
also said to put the kind of ours in to scrape all that
Well,
off so
that's,
it would
you know-
match the new one, it would be inordinate amount of money for that.
Well, ma'am, you know, you know, we're not here, we don't, this commission doesn't discuss what things cost. We're just here to basically
Interpret the
interpret the guidelines. So we don't discuss cost here.
We thought if they matched all, because there's already 4 of them that are that same style replacement one, that
Well-
was, if they're there already.
I'm sorry, say that again, you already have 4 of the.
See those?
You want
Yep,
to,
Yep, on the front and the side on the front and the side entries. Both of those, there's 4 posts already like that.
The replacement that she spec'd matches 4 of them
Exactly.
that are already existing.
So how many posts are
So
there
are there
total?
just 2 other posts? How many others are you matching?
There's I think 8 on the sun porch.
On the
7 or
sun
8.
porch? And that's the porch that has the roof,
Yep.
that has the solid,
No, this
Under.
one has one of the slatted
Has a
ones, that's the
slat on
sun
it, too?
porch. Yeah.
Is that considered the front porch, that porch number 3?
It has the flower pot on it,
Yeah.
and then the side porch does not.
Oh, front porch is number 4. Front porch. Oh, 3 and 4 are the front porch. Side
And,
porch.
and we numbered the posts.
So all 4 of those posts match.
Yep.
They have the triple ring design.
So there's 4 matching posts.
so you can
And-
almost see the other post on porch number 3. If you look further back, you'll see the difference between
So
the
the one
front
at the
porch and
end,
the back porch.
that's-
And the back post.
That's the original ones at the end?
That's the one, I think, on the screen porch back there.
And that's where there's 8 of them on the screen porch?
I think the ones that we're looking at here that are on the front, especially the front and the side, I think these are the original ones because they go all the way to the ground. They don't have, they haven't been jacked up by concrete. So, I believe the ones
So
on the
here we go.
side, see how
Those are-
different
see
those
that
are,
more
the
of a
sun
rounded
porch,
bottom,
very, very
kind of
different.
a fatter-
That's,
Yeah.
yeah, very different. So those were added at a later time, I think, when it went from a carriage house to a, I'm gonna make this my in-law quarter, or whatever it happened to be.
So,
So those are added later.
so the front and side porch, not the screen porch, you say those are the same exact columns as the ones you want to replace it with? All right, those are fine to replace then. These, on the other hand, I think needs to be a little more scrutinized with these. Now, this is a screen porch,
With the open slat ceiling.
and that has a slat ceiling, which indicates it is probably original.
Right.
So that might have been something the carriages might have been gone under or something like that. Well, anyone want to make a motion? It's a tricky one, but.
Would you like to start with a motion for the ceilings and then move on to the posts?
This includes other things on the sun porch includes repairing a door, replacing a door, it's all part of this.
If it wasn't mentioned in the action item or the next item, then it was done in kind.
Okay. So we're only dealing with the posts and the porch ceiling in this action item.
So we can replace the rotted wood on the frames?
If, I should have already sent you a COA.
Okay.
Some work in your COA applications I processed and sent to you.
Okay, thank you.
I'll move that the ceilings be kept for their historical significance. The 4 columns that are replacements on the front and side porch can be replaced with new columns that match.
Okay.
The 8 columns on the screen porch should be restored because of their originality.
And you're restored because of their originality. You're saying that the rotten bottom be cut off, replaced with new square to match, but can include a new aluminum base to separate the wood from the masonry.
Correct. You can add all that to it.
And do you want to make a suggestion about the screen going in the slatted roof? I mean, going in the slatted ceiling? Or something that she had a concern about the wasp going in there, there was a suggestion from the
Well,
commission.
I think the only solution to that is that there can be a screen put on it, but it has to be on the upper side, so you
Right.
have to actually take
Take it
that
down.
down to remove, to put a screen. But, it may be worth it to do that, because at the same time, you can clean out everything that's there and then just put it back. So it's really a matter of just a little time to do that. So cost-wise, it shouldn't be all that expensive.
Just labor.
Not that we're here to discuss costs.
All right, as that motion stands, is there a second?
Second.
Any further questions, comments, concerns on those 2 items? No? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we'll show that passes, and that work can commence. Let's see. Next, we can roll into windows and roofs on all 3 structures. All 3 structures meaning the,
The shed, the carriage house, and the house.
okay, yeah, that's what I thought. Let's handle windows on the rear cottage first.
All right, so there are the locations.
Mm-hmm.
All the windows except the replacement windows are out of plumb. 4 of the windows never had any storms, rotting frames. We spoke to 2 of the gentlemen Commissioner Morris referred us to. One of them said 4 of the windows are beyond salvage. One, there's a plywood covering where they had an air conditioner at one point. To restore them would be like 4 times what a replacement window would cost. These 2 big ones in the front, I mean, they are so far out of plumb. You can see the tenant put in dish rags and cardboard to keep bugs and the air out. We would like to replace the 2 front ones with the wood windows that we mentioned in the application, and the windows on the back and sides that aren't visible from the street with vinyl.
Not visible from the street. Just for clarification, no portion of this building is visible from any
Correct.
street, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Once again, I'll reiterate that these windows, there are, I think there were two in the kitchen maybe, that we thought were from the 50s or 40s. In the back of the house, I can't remember exactly where they were.
There's replacement one on one of the sides of the house, in the back by where the bathroom is. Two in the back of the house that face the back, that are on the back. And then one in the living room that faces the sunroom. Those are all replacement.
Which windows did you have a price on replacement
We got a
windows?
price on all of them, and we were quoted before even adding on screens up to $1,800 for each window to restore them.
I'm talking about new ones.
New ones, maybe between $8,000 and $1,000
To buy them,
to buy them, not even the installation.
which is my point. Try to put a new window in those unsquare areas, it's never gonna work. And that itself is gonna be a major cost to try to do that. Your best bet, really, on these windows, and you know, I talked to the second contractor actually this morning, and he was just talking about your house, and I believe he gave you a price of $400 to $500 per window. That's what he told me.
That was if we took them out, if he took them, they were not installed, not taken out, no storms. To restore them, we were told, wasn't just to restore them, it's the labor to take in, out, bring back. He wasn't gonna do any of that stuff. We had to physically hand the window to him. He had handed back, had to hire somebody to take it out, put it back in, buy storms, and some kind of custom-made storms as well, he's talking about. When you're talking almost $2,000 a window for a little cottage.
Have you talked to anyone about trying to put a new window in those
Yes,
spaces?
there's some kind of expansion pack that the gentleman, the Marvin Windows talked to us about, and Sierra Pacific people talked about, that will accommodate that unplumbed stuff for replacement wood windows. Because they also priced it out on the sunroom where all the windows, because of settling, are out of plumb and don't close.
And a Marvin window?
Pardon me?
This is a Marvin window?
Marvin and the Sierra Pacific. The architectural series for both of them.
Well, you know, I'll just say to the commissioners, the majority of these windows, I believe, are period windows to the house. They're pegged, mortise and tenon. Talked to a carpenter, he said they're all restorable, but again, you know, we're talking about a money issue. So,
The tenant can't open a window to get fresh air. There is no mechanism to even put a screen or, in the kitchen, the countertop is, if you look on the pictures, the countertop is way above the bottom of the windows here. They can't even reach down to pick up the sash
yeah,
to
but the
open a
window was there before the countertop.
But that's not it's not a functional kitchen then. And actually,
No, it isn't, ma'am, but we're not here to talk about, you know, again, the commission, and I'm not trying to be smart, I'm just saying what we do here is we look at the exterior of the building, and we look at the components of the building, what is original and what is not, what we believe can be restored, what we believe is not restorable. So I saw the house, I saw the windows, I know the carpenter, I've seen this done, I know it can be done.
what carpenter, sir? I thought you gave us window restorers.
Well,
That's who we
it's-
spoke to.
I mean, this guy's, that's one of the things he does. That's not all he does. You know, there is another person in town, that's all they do is window restorers.
We spoke to the two gentlemen that you referred us
Well,
to.
there's a third one also, but
My struggle is that I feel that we have precedent where we've approved replacing windows when they weren't visible. And since none of these are visible
well, they are
from
visible.
any street, if you
Well,
pull in
they're
their
not visible
driveway
from-
maybe.
They're not visible from Main Street, but there's a side street going
No,
down.
sir, that's a private driveway that we have an easement with the person behind us.
Okay.
That's
well,
not a street.
Second to that is that our precedent is to restore
I can cite address if we want to talk, but we've approved windows that weren't visible from the street. We've approved vinyl that wasn't visible from the street.
The guidelines say that the use of vinyl windows for replacement of deteriorated windows is not generally acceptable.
Yeah, we have never approved vinyl.
Although discouraged, they may be considered for use at
Never
rear
approved.
facades.
Nancy?
Excuse me?
Nancy? Couple streets over from you?
Yeah.
Oh, that's because they were already there or something.
They
That was
weren't.
vinyl? But see, we didn't, I don't think we knew those were vinyl. I think we made a mistake on that, if I remember correctly.
I would agree, I'm just saying that we approved.
That was a mistake on our part, because we didn't realize they were vinyl. We thought they were aluminum clad. I remember that, but there was something about that one that I believe was a
The
mistake.
existing one wasn't wood, is what I recall.
Yeah, I
It
don't
was
know.
not an original window.
Okay, let me go, let me step back.
Oh, that's right, the original windows were vinyl that she had in there, that's the
I
reason.
have pictures before. There was
Okay.
no vinyl there.
Let's go back to this, because you said that there are some of these windows that are beyond repair.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, how many of them?
There must 4 be on repair and 1 has got plywood.
Okay. How many windows are there altogether?
I counted up, I think on the thing it's asked for 8.
8?
Mhm.
So 4 beyond repair. So those can be replaced. The issue is, are they replaced with wood or are they replaced with vinyl?
We said we said we would do the front ones with wood. They're large. If anything, it's visibly that, but if you look at the lot line, you look where it's placed on the property, this property is not visible from any part of the street at all. It's way back, at the very back of the lot.
So we're talking about the 4 windows that are not deteriorated beyond repair. So we're talking about 4 of the 8 windows. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I just want to make sure which windows, and which are the 4 we're talking about? that
Those,
need-
all those little ones with those little thingies in there.
The two at the chimney
Okay.
upstairs.
And there's numbers on the application.
And the two,
every
the
window's
one
been
kitchen
labeled.
window, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then what's the other window on the back? Is there 2 on the back, 2 at the chimney?
There's a kitchen window, there's a living room window.
Okay.
There's 2 upstairs, 2 for the bedroom, 2 for the bathroom.
Yeah.
And then the one that's plywood. Those 2 we said we could do with the wood, with aluminum outside, and the other we asked for vinyl. Because 2 of those in back have already been replaced.
Which 2 in the back have already been replaced?
You'll see if you go to the back, they are, you see on the top 2 on the left, on the right there, those larger ones, on the second story.
Top 2 on the right, okay.
And
Though that one and that one have already been
And is
replaced.
that the kitchen window that the arrow is pointing to?
That one there is a living room window, and the one on the
Also-
left is a
also
kitchen
kitchen.
window. You can see the counter, how high it is, you can't even pick up the window.
So how many replacements?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7.
Those 5 plus those 2.
So the back of the house and the 2 on the side.
The 2 in the front,
Which would
those
be-
2 there,
Oh,
that's a
those two.
living room one, and that's and it's a, and kitchen slash
That's all
entry
of them.
one.
Yeah, but the
What's
2 on
the-
the front are gonna be wood clad,
There'd be wood,
Wood.
like to do the aluminum cladding on the
Yeah, wood.
outside,
Yeah.
yes.
and then, but the others, you're, on the back, you wanna do vinyl.
The back and the sides would like to do vinyl,
And the 2 at the chimney, you wanna do what?
vinyl.
Vinyl. Okay.
Mhm.
I think the big issue for me is not visible from Rivermont Avenue. That it's a private driveway going past, and I mean, I'm afraid, I would love to see them
Yeah.
original, but I think in terms of letter of the law, of the regulations,
Everything in a historic district is subject to your review. It's not whether it's visible from the street or not. That might change your standards, but there's no code that says if it's not visible, it could be vinyl.
yeah, and I'm saying, I'd like you to let go of the vinyl. I think over time, you're gonna find those vinyl windows not nearly as a quality as the wood, the aluminum clad wood. I think the aluminum clad wood is gonna give you a much more historical look, better energy performance, and a more historic historically accurate image for the cottage. And I think all of those things are gonna help you in terms of rentals. The image is certainly gonna be better, and the energy performance is gonna be better. I'd like to encourage you to think about all replacements. Again, I'm gonna go to the not visible for the replacement, but stay with the aluminum clad wood as opposed to vinyl.
Are they proposing vinyl?
Yeah, for the rear.
What about the rest of it, what are they proposing?
Just two of them were aluminum clad wood. The rest were vinyl.
We have a little issue also because the house sits right on the lot line of the house behind us. For us to get up as private homeowners to try to clean and paint those windows, the ground slopes so bad, you cannot, we don't have 40-foot ladders. And to have someone come 4 times a year to even clean or open it, it's not functional. I mean, it really isn't. The other thing, again, these are not visible from any part, at all.
But you have to understand, we say, sure, put vinyl in. Bam, the precedent is there for every other person sitting in the room that comes behind you to say, 3128, you approved vinyl, where the material, where the guidelines say don't. We've opened Pandora's box for every person behind you.
Well,
And that's
actually,
just-
that isn't true, and I just want to correct that right now, because I think it is noted in our guidelines that whatever we approve for one house does not set precedent for another.
Yeah,
But, yeah, I
I'm
understand
gonna sit there
exactly
and
what you're
say
saying,
that.
but, so technically, that is not the case. But it doesn't, but
Every
what
similar
Emmett says is
situation
true, it does, just like what, he said at the end, we did it there, why can't we do it here? Well,
So that picture at the top is taken from standing in your neighbor's yard, correct?
Correct, which we had to ask permission.
Because that's his shed.
That is, he's got 2
Right up
vinyl
against the
clad
side of
sheds 2
yours.
feet from each side of the cottage.
well,
Yeah, I think in terms of cleaning, the aluminum clad wood is, I'm missing the difference in terms of cleaning of that versus the vinyl.
Because you can pick them up and flip them in, they've got models where you can do that. It's just also painting them.
but you can do that with
Well,
with
the aluminum clad vinyl is, you're not gonna be painting those. That's a 20-year baked on paint on the aluminum clad vinyl.
No, no,
Of the
not vinyl.
aluminum clad wood.
Wood.
The exterior of that window is a baked on, a factory baked on paint finish with the aluminum slipped on to the outer surface of the wood.
We wanted to do that for the front of the cottage. Those are the 2 large windows, and that's, if anything would be visible at all, which it's not, it'd be the front.
You gotta let go of the it's visible part. That's a non-issue in terms of the guidelines. We have no way to say it's not visible, so therefore it's okay. That's just
You see,
I
for
mean,
us,
we can't
though-
change the guidelines,
Right,
man. We-
but you see, for us, is we've read that manual back and forwards, and we came in here with all the information we could find this building since 1955, looking at where the property improvements are, where in the lot line it is, reading, we watched every video just to know what, so we were understanding what is required and what is recommended. But, again, we're hearing that something that's not even visible, we're still being asked to put in $1,200 and $1,800 windows. That seems, again, if it's gonna take this much to bring this cottage to the historical standards, it's not a good use of money. Because it's not, we'll put more money into it than what the realtors, any realtor, we went to realtors with 35 years here saying that cottage would go for. If you're looking at you know, we understand historical and trying to preserve, we understand that, you know, we're majoring in history, but also we're looking at the economics. You know, it makes more sense us putting money into the main house where there's waterproofing done, windows should be restored, all kinds of things. And that's very visible from Rivermont Avenue.
Ma'am, if you've read the guidelines, you know that it says right in the guidelines that we do not approve vinyl
No,
windows.
it says it's discouraged.
It's discouraged.
Right, it says not generally approved. That doesn't sound absolute.
Well, the one case that he mentioned that we did approve them, I believe, in my recollection, and I could be wrong, but I believe those were they already had replacement windows there, and she was replacing in kind. So that's why we allowed
Can
it.
you read page 85 of the guidelines?
It's in what you have attached.
We're all talking about it.
I'll read it to you while she brings it up. It
Yeah.
says, "The use of vinyl windows for replacement of deteriorated windows is not generally acceptable. Although discouraged, they may be considered for use at the rear facades, not generally visible from the street."
That's what the guidelines say?
That's what it says.
Okay.
It's at the
Whatever
bottom
you
of
want.
C.
Motion, Michael?
Yes. I will make a motion that we allow her to replace the windows on the front with wood. Basically, as she's outlined it, there's, I think, I don't have the count. The ones in back, personally, I'm fine with. I'm not a fan of, but if that's the route that she wants to go, then I say she gets to put in the vinyl windows in the rear and on the side.
Well, it doesn't say side now, it says rear.
You're right.
I thought you said it's 5 on the rear and 2 on the front?
Two on
And
the
there's
front.
still on the sides too.
Oh, the 2 little ones up high.
You're right, it
Well,
says
it
rear.
says
This being a
visible. It
carriage
says-
house at the rear of the property that's completely obstructed by the main building, it's at the rear, in my opinion. It's the
Well,
side of the building at the rear
would
of the
be-
property.
The rear would be where it's right up against the property line. I think we're talking about those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 windows back there. So,
Actually, 2 of them have been replaced before we came.
Are you looking to replace them so they match the brand new ones you're putting in, or leaving
The
them as they?
style, match the style, not replace those two.
Okay, they stay.
Well, it
So it's
does-
only 3 on the back of the house.
It does say at the rear or sides of the dwelling. It does say that.
does it say that?
So, yes.
In the other paragraph,
Yeah.
yeah. This one, at bottom of letter C only says
she-
rear, but you're right, the other one says sides. But again, this whole structure is at the rear of the property, completely obstructed by the main dwelling from any.
So your motion is that the 5 in the back, the 2 small upper beside the chimney are allowed to be vinyl, visually in kind to match the historic.
Yes.
And the 2 on the front door side are to be aluminum clad wood.
Yes.
Historic windows.
Yes, I would encourage her to do that with all of them, but yeah, you nailed it.
All right.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Any other questions, comments? All those.
What would be?
Actually, go ahead.
The ones on the side are like little specialty windows, and they are super historically low, there on the side of the chimney.
Mm-hmm.
I would be so much more comfortable if those were also done with the wood,
Mm-hmm.
because they are unique and, oh, you said it before.
Are they hinged windows? They open up
Yes.
this way, correct?
They open in.
They
They
open
open
up
inward?
well, actually, they're nailed shut.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So we
But
don't
they-
know how they open.
Well, they got hinges, they open in.
And I have those on my upstairs,
Mhm.
in my attic too, and those are super characteristic of the time that house was built, which I agree with Rick. I don't know what, I'm sorry that the historical record doesn't comport with the actual characteristics of the house, but I agree that it's actually older. So I would like to propose an amendment to that the front windows and those little side windows be replaced with aluminum clad wood.
Can I ask a quick question? There's both ends of the house. One end has the chimney with the two little ones.
Yeah, see, those are.
Are
yeah.
those being replaced?
Yes.
Yes.
And the other end has the one with plywood. Both of those are being replaced also?
Yeah, yeah.
Those are the
So there's
exact
actually
same.
4 small.
There's 4 small ones.
Okay, well, the 4 small windows that are, if you look at them closely, he's right, they've got hinges, and they're,
On the inside.
on the inside, they're super characteristic of the time it was built.
Mm-hmm.
And I just feel like if you do all, the back ones with, I'm with
happy
you,
to-
I don't like it, but, I think that the front ones and the little side windows need to be the aluminum clad wood.
Also, I'd just like to bring up another point on that window at the kitchen. Are you changing the size of that window because your concern was the fact that it was deep? It was below the counter of the
We
kitchen?
would like to.
So that would change, so you need to
They
kind of
can do
say
that
the
same
size
size,
would
but again,
change.
it's very difficult to raise the window, get any fresh air when you're cooking or anything. There's no way to vent anything.
But if
It's,
if it's double hung, the top can come down, right?
no, that's solid. Both of the window restorers said though, that top was stationary.
No, but if you replace
No,
it.
if you're replacing it.
With the same size, instead of changing the size of the window, because otherwise you'd have a little short window and you'd have a longer window that are kind of side by side. So I was just.
You can if you're gonna replace that window with a new wood one, you can have it so that it'll lower from
Right,
the
but I
top.
just wanted to clarify that it's not changing the size of the window, but are you?
Yes.
No, it
what
costs
you
even
wanted
more
to do.
money to change the outside and
Okay,
make a
gotcha.
smaller window.
Yeah,
This is.
So we want to restate your motion, Mike?
If I can, I'm going to probably chop it up as it was, but I agree now. Thank you for, I would like to see these 4 side windows done in clad aluminum. And to clarify, the window that you're replacing in the kitchen, keeping the same footprint, the same size, you can just have it slide down from the top.
And then the back can be
Vinyl.
vinyl to match the other vinyl. ones
Correct.
that are there.
Sean, your second still good on that
Yeah,
motion?
well, my second is still good on that motion.
Amended motion.
Amended.
Yes.
Okay.
I'll work on my motion skills.
Let's get all that.
Do you want me to restate it?
No, I think we're good.
Okay.
But we still have another section of this action item.
Actually, the membrane roofs were already approved to be replaced.
Say again?
The membrane roofs were already approved to be replaced. We're not replacing roofs on all 3 structures per se. On the main house, there's one metal roof over a rear porch. That's really disintegrated. And there's a membrane roof that's really disintegrated. On the cottage, there's a membrane
Yeah.
roof that's very disintegrated. And on the shed, there's a metal roof that's very disintegrated. We were told the membrane roofs could be replaced in kind. And I assume
In
that the
Robert's Rules of
metal.
Order, we've got
Yeah,
a motion
Commissioner,
and a
we need to
second.
call
Bu-
it
bu- bu-
that. We have a motion on the table.
Can we have multiple motions on the same COA, though? That's what I'm trying to
That's fine.
determine.
Yes.
It's all on how we
Okay.
write it.
We've done that.
Okay.
I
All
think
right,
it's
well,
more confusing to.
Regarding the windows, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No, okay, we're good on the windows. All right, so back on the roofs then, real quick. So the replacing of the membranes has been administratively approved?
Especially after
Sound
that.
like, Victoria?
Well, let's take a look at this again.
Let's do these one roof at a time. I'm easily confused.
Here, I'll zoom in.
Let's stick with the building that we've been working with then.
Well, this is a different one. This is the main dwelling.
Oh, okay, well, leave what you have up on the screen. Main dwelling first. And that's just the rear
The
porch.
rear porch is metal.
Can we see a picture of that one? Is there a picture of that one?
Mhm. Oh, goodness. Okay, I believe that's the main house first.
Mm-hmm. It's replacing the step flashing and all as well.
Is that roof leaking?
There are parts of it, and Craftsman Roofing went over it very carefully and said to unlock it and do patchwork, it would just be, it's almost the same price as putting a new one on, and sections won't match if you have the new versus the old. A lot of pitting.
And so we're asking that you were just showing, the flat seam to be replaced with membrane.
No, there's another, on the same application, there, a different one, there was membrane on the left bay window.
Okay.
That was also
So
in
this
there.
is
They've combined a
all-
lot of the stuff in one thing here.
All of itself, this is all itself. This can be addressed by itself,
Mhm.
right?
Let's go each porch at a time, and you tell us what you want to change. So,
Victoria, go back to your photos.
Mhm.
Whoa.
so.
Not sure what's going on. It's getting jumpy.
So this one that you want to replace in kind with tin,
With the
Galvalume.
Galvalume,
Galvalume.
Yep.
yes. And with the baked on black finish.
But otherwise, it's in kind, it's gonna.
Yes.
That should,
No.
that's in kind, so.
Any motions on this roof specifically?
I've moved it on this particular roof, which is the,
Back porch.
back porch that be approved.
Second.
Any questions? Clarification? No? All those in favor of back porch roof replacement in kind?
Aye.
None opposed, so we're good there.
Okay, now onto the shed.
Shed, this is the one that you can see from,
Partially from the street.
partially from the street, correct? That little narrow building in the back. Okay, and we're looking at tearing off, furniture, software, layer of ice shields, continuous, also with Galvalume here.
Same thing, right?
Same thing, same material.
Same color.
But with the little snow guards, because it's
Oh,
a
right,
higher
'cause the pitch, right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do we have a picture of that one?
Yes.
The little house.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay. 1 second.
Move to approve as submitted.
Second.
Any other questions, comments? Seeing none, all those in favor of replacement of the shed roof in kind?
Cute. Aye.
It is. Okay, we're good on that. Back building.
That's the Cottage. They put at one point a green metal roof only on the back part, which is in better shape than the black that's original. So we wanted to replace the front part and over the sunroom with the green Galvalume to match the back replacement they had done. And the color scheme is, oh no, this is a different one now. All right. This is the rolled ridge and hip gaps on the main roof, the slate one. The metal
Right.
is rusting and pitted. They've already had to do some emergency plug-ups because there's leaking in the attic.
There
There's
are
pictures
pictures,
there.
there are pictures of this too.
Yeah.
I've seen those, yeah. There we go. Oh,
There we go.
So you're replacing all that rest?
Yes.
Say again?
replacing
The ridge
all of
cap.
that, yeah.
Yes.
Mhm.
How many roofers have you had look at this?
3.
Sec-
And we like Craftsman's explanation and options better than any of them, and the references and the work we've seen.
And say again, what, I want to go through and make sure we understand what they're replacing.
They would be taking off that metal and putting, they gave us 2 options, the pre-painted metal with nails or the copper with the welded seam versus the nailed seam.
With the
You're
same
going with the
configuration?
copper.
We'd like to, it's apparently not much more, and they feel that it's gonna be, the welding is a better thing than the nailed
And the
seams.
profile is matches?
Exactly the same.
Okay. And the bottom picture of this, Victoria, has is that the porch roof that's being replaced with membrane?
Yes.
So that's a
There's-
second item, but
Yes.
the same area.
Yes.
So at the same time, they would replace this with black
Yes,
membrane.
exactly, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'd move to approve both the ridge cap replacement in kind as well as the membrane.
We have a motion and a second. Any other questions, comments? No? Pretty straightforward. All those in favor?
Aye.
Hearing none opposed, that work is good to roll.
And there was one more roof on the
Yes.
cottage. yeah.
Yep, the cottage roof. I think that's still the back porch.
Okay. Let me
What's this picture?
take a quick look.
It's the very end of that application, I think.
I think
it's the Yeah,
last one.
Okay.
Which one is it you're looking at? Basically, it's the same one. It's the 10.
I might have to go back.
Yeah, it's the same
Take a look.
kind.
It's the
Those
one
are
that
just-
starts with the front and left side black standing seam roof metals are deteriorated.
Are you saying on this action item?
Yeah, keep going
Keep
past
going.
there.
No, well, we already went down to the bottom. I think it's further actually up.
Oh,
No, not that one.
It's the first building we were looking at.
but there's subsequent pictures.
Oh, you're saying at the very beginning?
It's right before, it's right before the porch, the first porch that we looked at.
Yeah,
There it is.
I'll keep going.
yeah, but that's, I think that's the
going
windows.
down.
That's the
Keep
windows
going.
section. We have to keep going down. It's coming up. There we go.
That's it.
This one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I found it.
All right, so the rear metal roof stays. The
Yep.
green
Yes.
metal roof on the rear stays. We want to take the sun porch and the front roofs and match the back.
Correct.
Anything on that side porch?
That's a little shingle roof.
Yeah,
That's
it's fine.
Yeah,
Nothing
it's the
wrong
only
with that.
thing.
Scroll down, Victoria. I think we've got pictures. So,
Hartford green, you say was the closest they,
Either
Think.
one, the Hartford or the classic, they would have to
oh,
put
get
a
them
sample
side by
close to it,
side.
right.
Okay.
go back to the photo. So you're saying the big dormer at the back is green
Correct.
already?
And there's just a picture that we try to do close angle or
Mm-hmm.
far angle to get it. Yeah, that's the only part that had made
Yeah.
green.
So it has that green. And so the front and this porch, you're asking to replace
Green,
with the galvalume?
yes,
But match the green?
right.
But what about the not the dormer, but the
shared room?
first pitch on the backside? That is,
I think that's green too.
okay.
We couldn't get, we don't have a huge enough ladder to get up there to take that
Sure.
picture. And even from the neighbor's yard, we could not
Wow.
get that close.
Okay. Yeah. So matching it as closely as possible.
Hate
to
that
what's on
those-
the back.
That somebody did the green. The green was inappropriate.
Was
Back-
it? Yeah.
Back when, yeah, they should all be the matte black
Black,
to
right.
get everything. And I guess the question would be is if you can't see them, they're that hard to see anyway, without a ladder or a drone, why not stay
Do you
with
want
the
to go
black?
black?
Because
would-
then you're gonna have the green, and you can see from the, if you go right in front of the cottage, you can see that green strip, right up there.
Oh, on the
Top of the
cap
roof.
on the top, you can
Yep.
see green.
That
Yep.
piece.
Oh, my gosh.
Ooh.
And that back green part is.
Right across there, right across the
Yeah,
ridge.
From what the
It's
craftsman
green.
said, they felt it was in decent shape for at least another 20 years.
So could you replace the green cap at the top?
Because they're gonna have to take that off anyway to
Yeah.
map in the front piece.
They're
That
probably
they're replacing.
yeah, they're probably
That's
replacing
gotta
that.
come off so that they can put the new green on the front,
Okay.
the new metal on the front. So when they put that on, they could just put black, and they could do the same thing on that side image that you have.
Though you're
It's-
and leave the green in back?
and leave the green in back. You're saying you can't see it?
No, what,
You have black
we
on
could
all the
not
other
get,
buildings.
that would look so tacky. Did you look at the back pictures? That would be tacky.
No, I didn't see them. I didn't.
Oh,
I
look at
don't-
it. There's
I-
a big difference. You can see it in the side if you
So
get.
that's the only place you can see is that piece right there. That little edge, that
No,
little edge
if you go
cap.
in back, if we're in your neighbor's house, we can see the roof.
Ah.
Can you see it from your residence? Can you see the top of that roof from the
Yes.
second floor of your
Yes,
residence? You
from the
can,
second
yeah.
floor.
So it would be
Yes.
piecemeal then.
Stink.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I was kind of thinking the same.
I just think in terms of the whole of your campus,
Yeah.
If
that
you'd
you've
be
got-
willing to donate the funds for us to do it, we'll do
Just saying.
anything you want. They're already talking a ton of money for
Yeah.
something that's not, you know.
I mean,
Is there a
there's-
motion?
There's precedent there, so.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Is that roof leaking?
Yes. Didn't you see
But
all
the
the
green
pictures
piece
of, didn't you see, oh no, we didn't give you pictures of all the water stains up and down the walls and the ceilings?
But the green piece isn't. So the green piece is probably new enough not to be 50 years old, but it's still there.
Well, there's another example right there of the age of the house. That's probably from the 1800s. That piece. Because that's certainly not 1952 or 55.
Yeah, those individual pieces and the way they've done the valleys around it.
Yeah.
That's so Victorian.
All right. Do we have
I'd
a-
move that it would be replaced with the green, the galvalumen green.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further questions, comments? No. Okay. All those in favor of that motion?
Aye.
None
Aye.
opposed? We are good on the roof for the back building.
Wow.
I applaud your efforts, you got your hands full. Full house, but I know you've got a lot to do.
We,
Have your hands
I don't
full.
know if it's gonna be worth the money for this one. I don't know all of it. Maybe see us for demolition permits.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Which will never happen.
Mellis, thank you so much for your time. Next up, 2001 Rivermont Avenue. Thank you for hanging in there with us.
Oh, my pleasure.
Good to see you again. Just for the record, if you wouldn't mind, please.
Anna Chitla, Willoughby Properties, 2001 Rivermont Avenue.
Excellent.
So the application before you has 4 items. Should I go through them all together and then we have a discussion, or would you prefer that we go one by one?
Oh, do one at a time.
One at a time. Okay, great. Let's start with the window well grates, Victoria, if you don't mind, if you could pull those pictures up. I'm assuming everyone is fairly familiar with the building because we've been here so many times, so I don't need to give an overview. I'll dive right in. So we have a number of window wells on the property, and you see they're marked there. They're sort of half circles, and then there are 2 larger ones. They're quite deep. They're over 30 inches, so the building code requires us to put in some sort of protection. I understand that the HBC guidelines really don't give much information on what to do in these instances, so we were guided by maintaining the historic character of the building and making these protections as invisible as possible. So we considered doing railings, a little bit of fencing, but I thought that these grades were really the best. They're durable, and they sit right inside the brick, so you really cannot see them from the street at all. This is not one in our building, this is just a sample, but I gave Victoria a picture of one that we did just to see what it would look like, and I'll be happy to show that to you. So this is the material. It's fairly heavy gauge steel, and it's very easy to work with, and you can cut it to size.
And you
Victoria,
wanted
would
the smooth on top, not serrated, correct?
I don't know. I think it might be serrated on top.
Okay.
Yep. The pictures I emailed you, can you pull those up? Oh, yeah, there we go. So there's a sample of the one that we did.
Mm-hmm. That's good.
Yeah, you good? Okay, so that's item 1.
Great.
Are we good? Let's do these one at a time.
Yep, we'll knock them out, motion one at a
I
time.
move that we pass as applied.
Second.
Questions, comments? No, hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
And in the future, when more applications do come for window wells, should we as staff consider this a change to the landscape, a change to the property or the building itself? How would you prefer that this be categorized?
They can go either way for all of them.
It's building, I mean.
Building.
Yeah, I think it's
Isaac's building, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, that helps. Thank you.
All right.
Okay,
We
item
are
number
good there.
2. We have some air conditioning units on the roof of the building, and the city code requires us to have protective guardrails in case someone has to work around the units so they don't fall off the roof. We place the air conditioning units in places of, over the school, the classroom wing, the flat part, and we tuck them behind the historic building and also on the furthest corner away from Rivermont. So you can't see the units and you will not be able to see the guardrails from Rivermont Avenue. There's a little bit of visibility from one angle on Hawes, but it's really quite minimal. And I do have some pictures if you're interested in seeing where they actually are.
Yeah, I would like to see that, actually.
Okay. Victoria, if you could pull up those pictures again. Okay, there's one right there. So that is the very back of the property. And you can see the HVAC units on top. So there will be a pipe type railing there.
So how far back does that set from?
That's on the western side of the gym, though. You wouldn't see that from the street. Which one's the one where you see from Hall Street? Is that the picture just below it?
Yes, yes. So let's focus on that one first, the one that Victoria had up. So we can, so that, okay. We can go back to this. Okay.
Oh, on the other?
Yeah, no, let's do this one. Okay. So this is over the classroom wing, the one that's parallel to Rivermont Avenue. That's the very back side.
And how long is it, how long is that building? You don't have a top view of that by any slim chance, do you, on here?
I
Would you like to
don't
see the
think
plans?
so.
I think you're seeing the corner right there in the.
There it is,
on the
right up
right-hand
there.
picture.
There we go.
Over on that left-hand side.
Yes.
Right up there is what we were just looking at.
I'm trying to orient myself here. Where's Rivermont?
You can see the bow front up front.
That's the house next door?
Rivermont is at the top.
Oh, Rivermont's at the top.
Rivermont is the top of the screen.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay,
top
I'm
of the
sorry.
screen.
I got them, I'm all discombobulated.
Yeah.
Okay, so the roof over there and over there. And so there's 3 places?
For
Oh,
the
that's
roof
the-
railings,
that's
railings,
the
no,
ramp.
there's
Okay.
just 2.
There
Right there
there.
and right there.
Okay, all right. And the first one we were just looking at is the one to the left, correct?
Yes.
So that one you wouldn't see anywhere.
You would not see anywhere unless you went, in that area behind the gym, in that corner.
So that's
That's
on the
really
other
not
side.
visible from any street and not really visible to the neighbors.
All right.
And Virginia Department of Historic Resources in your part 2 was comfortable with that?
With those railings, yes.
Okay. And with the HVAC units being visible?
Yes.
Okay.
They were fine where we placed them, yes.
And that rail runs is it for safety purposes, even though the AC units stop short of the end of the building, that rail has to go the length of that side?
I think so, yes.
It's an OSHA thing.
Right.
So coming up the side street this way, you would see the one.
So let's look at those pictures. If, Victoria, if on the plans, you
Right
could
there.
show specifically where that area is, where the other HVAC units are. As you can see, that's not visible from Rivermont because it's tucked behind the historic building, but you can see it from the parking lot and from Hawes. And if you could go to the picture now,
From the email?
on the email, yes. Okay. There it is.
There
So
it
you
is.
can see them on the corner there.
The little gray stacks that are
Right.
sitting up on that lower building that's a,
This
is that a
picture is
breezeway
back
that
from
connects
your.
the two, or is that? What are they on top of? Is that a
The
unit?
railings are gonna look, not be any more visible than the
Then the
HVACs
HVAC,
already
yeah.
are.
Right.
Yeah, just black lines, right?
It's just a black line. They're very minimalist.
Mm-hmm.
Not only that, they're required, you said, right?
Exactly.
So it's not like we can say, no, you can't put it there.
Right,
It has to
right.
happen there.
Yep.
Well, there is an OSHA option is a tie-off point, that if a maintenance person is working, they can wear a harness and a tie-off that's anchored to the roof. It is an option.
Gotcha.
That's a-
They may tie off and they may not,
It-
and the liability is mine, so I would
No,
rather have the
no,
railing.
if you've got the anchor there and they don't tie off, that's on them.
So so you have to install an anchor
Yeah.
for that purpose?
It's a, yeah.
Is that accepted by the building department?
Mhm, yes. But hell, the units are already visible, so.
Well, yeah. And
I'm
how-
surprised.
How high is the rail? 3 feet?
36, right?
Yeah, I think around there, yes.
know how
But
high-
I understand that this is required by the city building code. It's not just an OSHA requirement,
One of-
which is,
yeah, you're right.
which is
One
in
of the two are
place.
required.
But the city also requires the railings. Believe me, I tried to dissuade them from the railings, but they said it's mandatory.
But you're saying the other thing is,
It is, but it's a moot point to me, and because the units are already visible, so the railing in front of them is a non-issue.
how high are those, you know?
You mean how high are they
I'm just wondering how high
above?
the railing is going to be above well, not that one necessarily, but the other, one you just had there.
Scroll down, Victoria.
Yeah, because
How high do the AC units sit off the deck? They're probably 36 inches as well.
I think
and
so.
they're
Some
just
of them are
residential
even
size.
higher. But the railing is the regular railing height that you would have, on walkways and,
And let's see, and you had a detail of the rail somewhere I saw, I think. Is that in here?
In your
Back in the
Yes.
application. Yeah.
those are the
That's the ramp rail.
link.
There you go,
There
roof
it is.
Okay. Do they have a height on that thing? What does that say? Can anybody read that?
3'4".
3'4". 3'4".
I move that application approve the rail as submitted for the HVAC rooftop units. What's that?
Second.
Any questions about them? All those in favor?
Aye.
Great.
Next.
Okay. The third item is the ADA ramp and the railings. We decided not to put the ADA, any of the ADA apartments in the historic house because it would require modifications that were not necessarily consistent with the historical structure. So our ADA units are in the 1960s edition, and this is why we had to construct an ADA access ramp, and we'll have to install the railings. So the ramp itself is out of concrete. And the railings, we are proposing be made out of metal pipe. And you saw the shop drawings a minute ago. So if you could pull those up. Oh, the shop drawings were in the application, Victoria.
And then previously, Lisa.
Mm-hmm. Here we go.
So is this just for the handicap ramp? Is that what we're looking at now?
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
I
And
move that-
actually, we are only installing the top railing. The bottom one, initially, we thought it would be required, but it's not, because we don't have enough of a drop there. It's just 6 inches, so the city told us we didn't have to do it, but the top one is necessary. So I have 2 variations on this, actually 3 that I want to run by you. So this was our original idea, but now we hear from the city inspector that we really should have bars going up and down that are 4 inches apart. Would that make much of a difference to you?
The simpler, the better.
Okay. But if the city code requires spacing of 4 inches.
I don't think they would require that unless that ramp goes up above
It's a-
30 inches.
yeah, it
isn't
has to
that
be
right?
It does.
It does go up.
It does. It's about a foot at the end. What's that?
Sorry, just at the very end.
Yeah.
The very top point is 30 inches, right at that point, but 6 feet away, it's more than 30 inches.
And would they require it for the entire length of that?
It's unclear. We're discussing that.
As maybe not just the
We
last
could probably do
section?
it for maybe just the first 5 or 10 feet, but then that's sort of an odd.
Yeah, I can understand that.
Or two different.
Well,
Do it all.
I would say that you keep it as simple as possible so it's not as visible. But do the slats.
Changing halfway down?
Well, it's not halfway down, it's only a small portion, you said, correct?
Yeah, but I don't know whether it will look,
Where is it on,
Right.
does it show on here where it would be?
it will be at the very end.
Is there a possibility of bracketing in a glass panel to
Sure.
do that, the last section?
Sure, it's possible, but I don't think the bars are unattractive. Actually, I just took a picture at Randolph College when I was coming over here, and I think I included that
Yeah.
in the batch here. There it
Uh-huh,
is.
uh-huh.
These are at Randolph College, so
Right.
this is what they would look like.
Mhm.
That looks more than 4 inches, though.
Well,
But maybe not.
right.
Well, so in this particular case, you wouldn't have a middle horizontal bar.
Right.
That's a railing on the wall behind it. That's a handrail on
It's
the
a
wall
handrail
behind
on the
it.
back wall.
It's not an intermediate.
So there would have to be one.
No, it wouldn't.
No, just top rail, bottom rail, and the
Pickets.
verticals.
So that's your second option?
Yes. And I would like to know whether you will be all right with both, with those two, and then I have a third one.
Right.
Boy.
Do you want to show the third one, or are we going to
Yes.
vote on the other ones first?
Let's look at the third one. And that's in the pictures again. One more. There we go. There it is. So we're hoping to get our occupancy permit this week. And since I was not expecting your approval until today, and it will take a couple of weeks to manufacture these, we've decided to install this temporary railing. But the carpenter did such a great job, it really is quite permanent, and I think it looks really good. So I'm thinking of painting that, the colors of the doors and windows.
That's that tobacco brown or something?
Yes.
And using that instead of those
Yes.
nails you just told us.
Yes.
Do you have a side view by any chance?
On my phone, if you don't mind looking at that.
That would meet the city guidelines for ADA, correct?
Yes,
Or
all of
actually
the,
any
this
ADA.
would certainly meet the city guidelines, yes.
It's quite suburban residential, the wood with the pickets.
As opposed to the industrial.
Yeah,
moving house.
I don't think it's in keeping at all
right. I think you're
with the
right, yeah.
vocabulary of everything else you have.
It's it looks nice, I like it, but you're right, I don't think it's in keeping with the new, with the rest of the house, building, yeah.
Because you do have some existing rails by that door we see in the background.
what
do
And
we
that's
not?
the fourth item we're going to turn
At
to in a
the-
minute.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it looks like
Yeah.
there, yeah. Is that
So
wood?
the question is it consistent with the guidelines? And looking at them, they say that ramps, ADA ramps, should be in the rear. This one certainly is. Wood construction preferred and simple design. And I think that wooden structure is probably as simple as you can get and still meet code. And it should be concealed by shrubbery. And we do have a line of shrubbery right in front of that. So I think that would be consistent with the guidelines. So if you could consider that aspect, that would be good.
And you want it painted.
And I would like to paint it brown, yes.
It'd be helpful if we saw the side view.
Yeah, can we,
Should I email you another picture, or would you just like to have a look at it up on my phone?
You can just pass it around, I guess. Take a look at it.
You can walk it around if you like. I see your credit cards in there, so. Don't want to be accused of.
Oh, it looks better on the side than,
It really does.
the side view looks better than the,
And don't you think painted brown to match the windows would be very nice? Yeah.
It looks better from the side, Rick. I think you'll like it.
Oh, my. Actually, yeah, it does.
I just wiped your water out.
That's all right, I had two
You
already.
can get some from Chris.
Victoria, do you have that, Victoria, can you go back to that other photograph that you were showing with the wood railing, and you could see kind of the other?
Okay.
Yeah, there was another
There's
picture
another, like the
very
porch. Do you have
close
a
to this.
picture
It's
of the
from,
light
it's
there?
from standing out in
Yeah.
towards the street.
That's what kind of makes it come together. Is that wood? Is it, is the white?
Yes, but that's historic, so that we've replaced
Yeah.
those with.
Victoria, you have one
But
other
is that a-
picture where there's
that's a wood
a
railing
standing
there?
out that way, looking back in this direction, I thought.
That's a different that we're around.
Yes, we're going to discuss that next, so. yeah.
What about that metal rail, though, that's just behind it, though? Right there.
Those are,
Yes.
that's existing rails on the.
It's existing rails, okay.
Yes.
So that existing rail right there would almost match that, the second option that you had. I mean, I'm good with the wood rail. I'm good with any three options.
But you're approving the wood if you do that, because it's already in place.
Probably.
And you're not gonna take it down and put it up if they don't have to.
You know, there's still a chance that DHR will not be happy with the wood railing.
That's true.
So you're asking us to approve either option?
All three, yes.
But our guidelines, as she pointed out, state that wood is
It's okay,
appropriate, so I would move.
Preferred.
Preferred. I move that the application for the rail be approved for any of the three options submitted,
Provided the wood is painted, I would say.
provided that the wood is painted brown and shrubbery is planted to not necessarily hide it. What's the word that she?
Leave the shrubbery off.
Well, she already planted it, she's already got it there anyway.
We're gonna work on that line in the.
Yeah, let's just cut the shrubbery out of that.
The
Just
shrubbery
leave
is
it.
already there. It's planted,
know.
right?
Okay.
All right, so yeah, just cut the shrubbery portion off, and that's my motion.
Second.
Any further questions, comments, clarification? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we're good on that part.
And the last item is a small rail on the historic house in the very back that leads into the basement. And let's look at it on the map and maybe then a picture. There we go. There it is. So there's no railing there. I don't think there ever was a railing, but in today's world, the code requires one. So the question is what type of material? We proposed metal initially, but again, we have a very nice looking wooden one. But there I think that perhaps the metal one would be better if you take a look at the picture that I sent to Victoria. There it is.
Given its proximity to the existing.
To the other one, yes.
Be most helpful if these weren't sideways. That's right, fix those.
You want just let you turn
Victoria's defense, Anna, he sent these at 3:59 PM today.
Yeah, as I was thinking about talking to all of you, I thought, I would want to see this picture, so I decided to send them.
Okay.
I like the metal there better, guys.
Yeah, I think in that
Given its
particular
proximity to
case,
the other one, I would lean more towards metal as well myself.
yeah, metal to match the existing one that's there, that we're talking about.
As much as I would like to save $1,500 at this stage of the project, I like the metal better, so let's go with that.
I'll make a motion to approve the placement of a metal handrail.
You wanted to say something?
Second.
Use the word proximity to the adjacent, the ADA handrail is, how many, 5 feet away?
No,
15, it's a little further away.
You know, that's a good point. How far, you know, we're looking at the metal and the wood. Where's the other wood one? And
Right.
15 feet away.
Right, going right down the sidewall. It's just,
Well,
again, in
I
terms
mean,
of
if-
making a decision, we've already blessed that one. I think, one, DHR is going to weigh in on you on that anyway. From my experience with them, I would guess. But thinking holistically about the visual of your property, when you talk about the relationship, I mean, you see where they are, Rick, they're 15 feet away.
So.
I'd be consistent in your vocabulary.
Are they both constructed exactly the same right now? The ramp and that one?
you mean the
two wood
railings?
ones.
The temporary ones? Yes, they're exactly the same.
Well, I mean, yeah, you're right, we should be consistent, we should, if we approve that one, we should approve this one or metal. So, who just made that motion?
I did.
You want to change it?
No, but somebody else can put one on the table.
All right.
Well, we have to act on,
We have
if
to act
it
on
gets
that.
a second.
It wasn't seconded, I don't believe, or did you?
Oh, actually, yes, she did. All right, well, we have to call for a vote then on it. All those in favor? Any opposed? Okay, back to the drawing board.
But we've already approved the first one. We cannot go back and unapprove
Right.
the first one.
No, the first one's approved. So I'll make a motion on the second rail that it can be in wood as is constructed, or metal to match the adjacent metal rail that is existing.
That was your,
Second that.
that was your
I do
motion,
have a
right?
question.
I didn't
What
second it.
is just below where that basement guardrail is, what is that square or rectangular shape?
It's
It says file.
A landing at the door?
Oh, you mean, no,
okay.
I think he's asking Casey about the landing, where the arrow is pointing?
No, just below that, there's kind of a rectangular,
Yeah, that's just landscaping, there's a light post going there.
okay. Okay, so sidewalks go around that.
Yes.
And those all, well, that's sort of how they have been.
Uh-huh.
We didn't make any
Okay,
changes to that.
so that, I mean, it makes that area a little bit more removed, tucked into the corner from where the ADA ramp is, in my view. But we have a first and a second. Any other questions or comments about it? No? All those in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Any opposed? No, we're good there?
Now, for clarification, an ADA ramp was part of the application. You've approved the railings and the grates, but have you approved the ADA ramp itself,
I think that was along with the railings.
along with the railings?
Yeah.
But I don't think that wasn't part of the motion, we just approved the rail.
Yeah, it wasn't
But we-
discussed. I mean, as long as it meets the ADA, I don't think we can say, no, you can't put a ramp.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think that's a
that's
a
above our
building
pay
code.
grade.
That's beyond
Requirement,
us,
not
I
us.
believe.
That's
So,
above our pay grade. so.
yeah.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank
Great
you.
to see you again. Thank you so much. Okay.
When are you going to occupy?
Next, we can roll
Okay.
to 401 Rivermont
When
Avenue.
are units getting occupied?
10 days.
How many of them are rented?
5.
Cool.
Nice. Excellent.
Pictures to that. For the part 3 for tax credits.
Nice.
For those 5 at least.
Very good. Excellent.
I am Casey Service. I'm with Architectural Design Office. This is Tony West. He's the owner at 401 Rivermont Avenue.
Thank you, gentlemen, for being here and your patience.
No problem. While we were listening earlier, I pulled up the Sanborn maps, and it's definitely on the 1907 for that property on Rivermont.
Huh?
And for future reference, the Library of Virginia has them online for access for anybody.
Nice.
Good to know.
Good stuff.
Yeah. So, so this is the old Lynchburg light traction trolley barn at 401 Rivermont. So it was originally trolley barn for the streetcars. It's been a mechanic's garage for, I think, ever since the cars took over for the trolleys. This is, we're at the beginning stages here. It's currently zoned R4, which with the size of the lot would really only allow for 3 apartments. And it's a much bigger building than that. So we're going for a rezoning of this parcel along with the adjacent house and the parking lot in the rear. The parking lot in the rear is a separate parcel that's outside of the historic district. And then the house next door, we are, as we'll discuss, the reason we're including it is because part of this proposal is to build a light well that would take part of that parcel. Tony owns both properties and would transfer part of that parcel for 405 Rivermont to 401 to construct that light well. And because of that, Tom Martin said that we would need to rezone the property at 405. So we submitted a COA application for 405 as well. All the work there is just in-kind repairs. This is it's a new construction type for me. The front facade is brick all the way through. The 2 sides in the rear are actually just a piece of metal that's on, it's inside there are steel columns and trusses, and I mean, it's just sort of like a new modern building with the metal struts. When I say new, just in terms of a historic.
So no insulation whatsoever?
No, your exterior wall on that back facade, the bottom picture is an 1/8 inch piece of metal. And on the
Is that
two,
original?
huh?
Is that original?
Oh, it's most definitely original. Yeah, yeah. It's a pressed tin. It looks like I don't think it's tin, but it's a
Galvanized metal?
It's some sort of galvanized, but it's got a panel shape to it, and it's actually on that backside in pretty decent condition. Tony and I just went back over there, and because of how sunny it was, you could there are a few pinpricks of light coming through, but we think it's repairable. On the 2 sides, at some point, aluminum lap siding was installed.
Is the aluminum just on the metal framing? And
No,
that's
there's wood
it?
furring between the metal framing. Oh, sorry.
On the 2 sides?
On the
where
2
it's
sides, the
just
aluminum siding, they put wood furring strips up on the historic metal panels. And there's a few spots, Victoria, if you scroll through.
So the metal panels are underneath the vinyl? I mean,
I think it's
aluminum
aluminum,
side.
but yes, they're
Aluminum
underneath
side.
there. Go, that picture right there, you can see that rusted metal.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
And so the original application that I think you all saw, we were proposing to pull the aluminum lap siding off and put new metal siding on. Since I submitted the application, I went to DHR open house and talked to the reviewer, and she came back and said that we couldn't do that. We had to ask because it's a piece of metal that's clear, from what we can see, is very rusted on the outside.
What are they recommending?
They said we could. Look, we're allowed to keep the lap siding, but having looked at it, it looks like it's in pretty good shape. And they said that we could, on the interior, insulate and fur out.
It's in sheets.
To get some more heft to that exterior wall.
That's
So
the
so the plan is, and what we're proposing to you guys today, is to just pull that lap siding off and repair that rusted metal underneath.
do your work underneath and then
Yeah.
put it all right back on.
No. We're gonna pull the lap siding off, and it'll look like that back side does now with the fresh coat of paint, and you'll see the historic.
Oh.
That's okay.
We're gonna fix
Yeah,
the metal
'cause that's
panels
what's
this
on the
day.
end.
We're gonna
Fix
fix
the
the metal
metal
panels
Is
this day.
historic.
Where you do all your installation on the inside?
We'll do
then?
all the installation on the inside. And we've got enough space that we've got about probably 8, 9 inches to play with
Okay.
on the inside.
Because I mean, that picture where you had peeled it back, it looks like there's like 2 sections of furring strips, horizontal and vertical.
Yeah,
so
I
it
think
sets
they
off
just
that
have
wall a bit,
yeah,
right?
yeah. But there's on the inside, there's a concrete curb that we can set our furring on that is already sort of space that doesn't
Okay.
really,
That
we've
makes
got,
sense.
we've got room to work on the inside, so,
You're just gonna take it off and repair that.
repair that original metal, and we'll probably,
So you're gonna have to sand that.
it's gonna, yeah.
Okay.
You guys will see Tony out there on Sunday
Body shop.
afternoons.
We have body shop going, a lot of Bondo, repairing holes and sanding. That's it.
And we'll probably have to get a few of the panels manufactured, because there are some that are really pretty rough, but probably 90% of them are definitely
Okay.
repairable,
So
knock
what
on
period-
wood.
What period do you think those were put on? 50s?
The lap siding,
Yeah.
probably, so
Actually, that happened with the last.
Say it's
garage.
newer.
Oh, with the garage.
That's
Probably about the
You
right
better
time.
say it's newer.
Well, it happened probably within the last 20 years, because the
There
owner
you
there
go.
now, he put it on there because he said it was so cold inside. So, yeah.
Well, you know, I mean, if there's any evidence of when that was put on, you know, I just had the same thing happen with DHR, that we were gonna replace some garage doors. They said, no, you have to keep them, because they thought they were original. This building is 1956.
Okay.
We found evidence that they were put on in the 80s, and they said, well, then in that case, okay, you can take
So,
them.
then, yes.
That's all happened with that.
Less than 50 years is,
Yeah.
Well, it has to do with the period of significance for the
yeah,
district.
and
And
the
I'm trying
historic
to remember
district's
where.
period of significance is, Anna?
In 1960s, I think,
Yeah.
There you go, so.
right before the previous building was built.
Okay.
So that's and you know, the brick front we're keeping, all the windows we're planning on repairing. There's a overhead door on Rivermont, and then there's another one to the basement level on D Street. On Rivermont, appears to be a newer overhead door. So the proposal there is to take that off, put new aluminum storefront in the manner that DHR has been asking for recently, which is as square as possible with solid panels on at least the lowest row of muntins and including muntins through the door.
Be nice if you could, Nancy next door, find a photo of that original.
Looking
She
for
sent them
she's
to me. Yeah,
she's
she's
we,
already
I've
done it,
looked a
yeah.
bunch online and I've reached out to Jones Memorial. The best pictures are there's a couple aerial shots of when the bridge was being built that you can mostly see the roof. It's like just out of frame of a lot, or if they were taken from across the creek, they're looking at Jones Memorial because it's a little bit of a nicer looking building.
So tell me again, explain to me about the front doors, you're gonna take those off.
Yeah, so the
Go
front,
back to the picture of that, yeah.
I think if you go
The big
go
bay
the other
door, you mean.
direction.
The big door, yeah.
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 So,
That
so
white
that,
one.
yeah, and then I have an elevation drawing that shows, so it'll basically be, aluminum storefront set at the back side of the brick opening with square pieces of glass going across. This one, we're proposing a double door centered, and then the bottom panels will be an opaque panel. And then at the doors, you'll have the horizontal line of the main frame will go in through the door so that you get that square grid all the way through. So they're about like a 30-inch tall by 3-foot wide square
So
panel.
this building hasn't gone through DHR?
I'm in the process of I went to the open house and have the report ready, but then heard back on the
So
exterior stuff.
part one is complete, but you're
Part
in
one's
process
complete,
of-
part two is in process. But we're trying to move along on the rezoning side concurrently. So we came just to try and get at least an initial approval. If something changes with DHR, obviously we'll have to come back and get it reapproved, but wanted to get your blessing.
So I just want to hear again, so the rear wall that we can clearly see the metal panels.
Yep.
That are painted is the same stuff that's under the aluminum
Yeah,
siding
you
on
can
the side.
you can clearly see it on the inside. It's all exposed and it's all the same.
Your goal is to clean it all and paint it all, and that's
Yeah.
gonna still be the exterior.
Yep.
For the back.
For the back
And the
and for
side.
both
And
sides
sides.
we're pulling the lap siding off and.
Well, I thought you just said that you couldn't do that. They-
No, we
it's
proposed, the
later.
initial proposal that we submitted to you and I talked to DHR about was putting new metal panel siding
Oh.
on top to try and get the insulation on the outside, but they didn't like that.
So do you think, so you don't have an answer whether or not they'll approve the?
No, I have an informal answer of, she sent me an email
Beware
saying,
of that one.
she talked to her team and said that, they're pretty good with
Yeah.
that type of, they won't really,
Do you have Jessica or?
Carolyn
Caroline.
is reviewing this one.
Okay, good luck.
For those just
Yeah.
metal frame shop windows that are throughout.
Yeah, all the windows are sort of steel factory sash,
sides and the
and,
back all
there'll be a lot of new glass, but
Be nice.
plan is just to
Yeah,
repair the frames and
yeah,
reglaze them.
definitely.
Okay.
So it's really the front overhead door, and then there's also on the side
Yeah, the
elevation,
garage door that's below.
there's another garage door. The difference there is it does have the historic sliding metal doors on the outside.
Yeah.
And then there's a non-historic garage door. So what we're planning on doing there is installing a similar storefront, keeping the historic doors and just sort of
Oh, leaving them
leaving
open.
them open.
Okay.
So
Can you,
that
can you
we go
show
to
that
those
picture,
drawings?
Victoria?
Yes.
The one that's the lower grade?
It's on the side. Do I not have
I don't think we have a picture of
a good one there? Man, I missed it.
Yeah, it cuts off just before it gets there.
It's on the, if you bring up the elevations, I drew it, and I can probably pull up.
There it is. There, down on the left-hand side.
Yeah, so
Lower
they
left.
have sort of
Yep.
windows up on the top half, but there's no way to make that.
So is the top one is existing elevation?
Yeah, top elevations are existing, and then the bottoms are proposed.
So the only thing you're changing is the door, the big one?
Yes, on the front elevation, the only thing that's changing is the overhead door. And then on that D Street side elevation, the only thing that's changing is
The inner door.
the inner door, keeping the exterior doors just in a fixed open position. And then on the rear elevation, we're not posing any changes. And then on the other side, Victoria, if you go to the next sheet.
This is the excavation.
So this is the other part, yeah, so there's basically the southern half of the floor plate, there's a full basement. And just to maximize the floor plate, we'd like to dig out a light well, probably about 4 feet deep by, I think it's around 30, I put it in the application, it's either 30 or 40 feet long.
Yeah.
Just to get some additional windows, you can't see them from anywhere.
Sure.
In the district.
Skylights, new?
And then that's so the last item would be on the roof, the existing roof's asphalt shingles. We have not dug into what's between the asphalt shingles and the metal deck that we can see from the underside yet. We're sort of assuming there's not a whole lot there because the profile of the eaves is only a couple inches deep. We'd like to pull the asphalt shingles up, put 5 inches of rigid insulation, and then go back with a standing seam metal roof. I've tried to pull stuff off Nancy Marion's look to see what pictures we can find. I've seen a couple of the roof, but it's blurry enough where it could be a membrane roof, it could be asphalt. It's sort of hard to tell. My last thing that I think I can find, Joe's Memorial is closed today, but next time I'm down here, I'm going to go. They have the minutes from the Lynchburg light traction trolley company's board meetings, and I'm wondering if I can pull them up from when it was built and see if it had documents what they used.
Probably had metal back then.
I would assume.
That's what we're assuming too. And with the rigid, you can't put asphalt right on rigid; it'll just melt the shingles.
Asphalt, when did they start putting asphalt roofs?
They're actually they date to turn of the century, but it seems metal is more likely, and it seems appropriate.
With the lower slope and everything,
Yeah.
I think
So the plan is to do just a modern metal standing seam, and basically our plan for that upper level, it's really tall in there. So we have 10 units on that upper floor that have lofts. And so in order to get some additional light to that upper level of loft, we'd like to put a skylight into each unit. So we're talking about 10 total, 5 on each side.
When you say that the loft units, is that the first floor level plus a loft above it?
Yeah, so the eave of the upper level is about at 12 feet where the roof starts to go up, and it goes up to, I think, 21. So the,
But that's
and I think,
above.
Victoria, if you go, did I include this section in this? I might have taken it off since you guys don't really, yeah. But essentially that upper level, it's back, so you see the full height for the first 10 feet. And also to get enough height in the upper level. But because of that, there's really not, there's essentially one very large window in each unit. So we'd like to install a skylight to get some additional light, but they'll just be deck mounted, really low profile.
All right.
I move that the application be approved as submitted.
Second.
Any questions, comments? Hearing none, we'll call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Hearing none opposed? Or do we have an opposed? Do we have an opposed?
No.
Oh, okay. All
I'm
right.
sorry. I was just, I mean, that's what I was going back and looking at the
Very good.
guidelines and in terms of skylights, and I mean, low profile is correct. It says not visible from the street.
You can't see it from here.
It's,
You
yeah.
probably won't unless
There's, it's one, maybe for
Yeah.
a quick
the
section,
house-
you'll see
The
them,
house
but
probably shields it from one side and
yes.
the other
And then-
building from the other side, so they
yeah.
probably won't be seen.
Yeah, they'll flash as you're driving down. You'll see them for a
You
second.
could
cool
probably
project.
stand on the
Yeah.
far sidewalk or the bridge and get a,
Yeah, and we tried to, it's the way the bays are set up. There's the first bay is essentially the lobby, and then it's on the back side
That
of the
helps.
second bay. So there's not going to be one right up in the back
Okay,
side of the
good.
bay.
We'll probably be easier than the DHR.
You probably will.
How did, in looking at, I mean, you said you were looking for some older photographs of this. How in the world did they get streetcars that run up the middle of Rivermont turned
I
into
have
that?
no
bay?
idea.
Did they have a roundabout there or
Yeah,
something?
they tracks. Pivoted on the road.
So there was a roundabout right there.
Yeah.
The trolley would pull onto this circle and it would pivot.
Yeah.
And that's how they would turn
Yeah.
it.
Or a round table, that's what it was called,
Yeah,
a
right,
round
right,
table.
yeah.
Okay.
Did you get an approval at the open house? What did she say about the skylights?
She was sort of non-committal about the roof and the skylights, so I think that's sort of our one.
we'll look at it when the submittal comes.
Yeah, which I sort of knew.
It's our standard answer.
It was really interesting going to talk to her about a building that had a piece of metal for a wall. Because
All right, gentlemen,
Thank you.
thank
Thank
you.
you. Have a good
Thanks
evening.
so much. You too. Well, that concludes our action items.
How does this compare to our current guidelines?
We don't have,
Anything?
we have some on standing seam metal roofs, but it's not as specific as this.
We have a metal roof expert here?
No, next item.
So is this something we're supposed to be approving now, or is this something we can?
I think under consideration.
This is more of a discussion. It could be something that we refer to in the future as something the HPC has discussed and sees as advice, but it would not be part of the guidelines unless we went through with city council.
I think one of the biggest things we need to think about, evaluate, consider is existing standing seam roofs that have some damage, but not wholesale damage, and the prospect of being able to repair those in kind, in place, same profiles, as opposed to me as a homeowner say, well, I've got my metal roof damaged, I want to strip it all off and put on a new 20-year pre-finished. That for me is the biggest item, because I think we've seen a number of submittals where roofs were bad. I mean, we just went through one
Yeah. And-
today and approved new metal roof.
And to be honest, I sat there and said, well, how do we know if the pictures didn't seem so bad to me. And so how do we determine whether a roof has to be replaced, or why can't you keep the existing roof? That roof honestly looked okay to me. That's
But-
why I kept asking, are there leaks?
Leaks, right.
But at
Absent
100
somebody going out and inspecting them though, I mean, is there somebody for the city that would go inspect them for
Well,
us?
that's the issue. I mean, how.
That person doesn't exist on
Yeah.
city staff.
That's what I'm
Right.
saying.
People don't have 50 grand that they want to just throw at a roof because they have nothing better to spend it on.
I mean, to be quite honest with you, I almost could guarantee that those roofs could have been repaired and repainted, and they would last.
But at the same time, Rick, I've certainly worked on 10 roofs that were 100 years old that needed replacement.
Oh, yeah.
And we have replaced them, and
That's right, but my question is, we're taking the owner's advice that he or she probably got from a
Craftsman.
roofing company, which of course wants to replace the roof.
well, at the same time, Craftsman, I mean, they are a quality firm that I've had multiple project experiences with, that I feel very comfortable taking their recommendations. But, are we gonna get of them every time?
Now, the guidelines already do say that roofs of standing seam metal should be repaired.
Yeah.
When-
Where possible, or something?
Yeah,
It just
I
says
guess that's
should be
my
repaired,
question,
period. If replacement is necessary, the new roof should match the original as closely as possible in dimensions, seam crimping, and seam spacing. This is where we get to the point of historically correct commercially available roof coatings may be considered for repairs. And I had a few here, but personally, I am not sure how historically accurate they are.
Right.
Not.
Not, okay,
Pretty much across the board, not.
not.
Right.
And again, where you just read was appropriate dimension in kind. I mean, we certainly had 2 meetings ago, the whole discussion about
Spacing.
the panel width. And what is available now versus,
Right, and it does say as closely to the original as possible.
yeah. And if we don't have teeth in there as close as possible, that's a total relative term. I mean, I think we had the 22-inch, 19-inch. Oftentimes you'll see 16s on originals. And as close to, if 19 or 22 is the current industry standard, unless we're willing to change the guidelines to get some teeth in, no, if it's 16, it has to stay at 16. We have nothing we can do at this point in time.
So you're saying that it's at 16, we want it to stay at 16, but they're telling us that's not possible. But it is possible, we all know it's possible.
Well, all possible. The discussion we had before about pre-finished versus the hand crimped and painted, there is nothing in the US right now that will replace the 16-inch in kind. The company that used to do that is Follansbee, that was in Follansbee, West Virginia. They went out of business 5-6 years ago. They sold all their equipment to a Pennsylvania firm, but they have not set it back up and started producing again. The only thing that I know of that's similar is produced in Germany, and it's 3 times the cost of a commercially produced, pre-finished material. And I think that would be awful harsh for us to say,
Yeah,
you gotta buy the German stuff that's gonna
Right.
cost you $70,000 instead of, that's a,
So you're saying that the most common now is 19 inches?
I think it's definitely bigger than the 16s. I
Because
think,
our thing says width, so you're saying we should put some width requirements in our,
but again, we can't, if we sat there and said, you've gotta put 16 back, they'd have to use the German stuff.
Because we also have talked about, we also, in that same discussion a couple of meetings ago, or one of these meetings since I've been here, we considered the size of the roof. I think there was a young man who
Right.
had a smaller porch roof, and we thought, well, maybe the larger width would not be appropriate for that size. So then,
I think we definitely, if there's a 19 and a 22 available, I think we would want to push for the more narrow. But there's no way we could say you've got to use 16 to match original, because we just made them buy the German product.
We just say that it's the narrowest gauge that's commercially available in the United States.
Well, that's not a bad point, because what if that company does start manufacturing these? And then,
You mean in the US?
we change all this and say 19, then we'll say, but then this company said, well, they just started, after we've put this in here, and then we got to change it all again. So I think the thing to do is say exactly what he said, the narrowest.
Yeah, I mean, Revere, the company in Pennsylvania, does produce a metal roof, but it's basically copper, which is, you just ping, you could get the narrower gauge, but.
And copper.
Yeah.
My God.
So, yeah.
We certainly aren't going to say, and paint it black to match original.
Yeah.
Put the copper on and paint it black.
So,
I mean, so are you proposing that we make some changes to the way it's written, or that we add some
well,
requirements
there
in there?
isn't anything written, that's the
I
problem.
mean, we're gonna have to go through city council to do that, so it'll need to be written up.
It would be a good process. So right now, this is more of gathering information, making a sheet for advisory purposes. And
Well,
I'd
then
like
the-
to ask again if any of you know of any historically commercial roof, wait 1 second, historically correct commercially available roof coatings for these roofs?
I don't
None?
know of any coatings that you would say to put on a tin roof that's leaking, that's, 100 years old, that's leaking.
That's acceptable.
Any
Yeah.
that maintain or still continue to look historic after they were put on? No?
Yeah, I mean, you basically goop it.
Okay.
And
All right, so
Current guidelines are misleading.
yeah.
in many places.
There's a line in there that says the secretary has a list of commercially available, historically appropriate roof
And that's what
coatings.
got us on this discussion.
You, the
Different ways.
secretary?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, not the Secretary of the Interior?
No.
Oh, okay.
So that needs to be taken out.
It sounds like another thing to add to the
We've got a
list.
running
Yeah.
list of edits for the.
Along with shrubbery.
Okay.
Have you looked at what the Secretary of the Interior talks about with metal roofs?
Yes, and it talks about the history of almost everything besides coatings, and I think it mentions some of these in post-60s, just as part of the timeline, but I didn't see any mention of beforehand.
Yeah, no, it would be after for sure.
Bring me shrubbery.
That's what I have.
All right, so thank you for participating in the discussion. As you think about this anymore, again, we have running lists, so please feel free to email me with any suggestions as you think about this more.
Okay.
But I ought to go ahead and get rid of that.
Did everyone eat their Wheaties this morning? Do you guys want a quick recess?
No, let's
come
whack
back?
through.
No, we're good. Demolition by neglect,
All right.
discussion.
All right.
All right. Let's hear it.
All right, last item on the agenda, and we've got Keith Wright here from our Inspections Division of Community Development to also talk about what we do in our department. So yeah, I'm glad to be here and discuss demolition by neglect. It's a follow-up to a discussion we touched on at our June meeting about it. Well, it was all kicked off with the chimney on Harrison Street that is decaying and is going to need to be taken down. But you guys asked, how do we prevent this in the future? And so that kind of kicked off a little bit of research on our end, a lot of thinking, and then this presentation that Keith and I have been working on. And apologies for the delay. I was sick last September for your meeting, and so that's why we decided to delay it. I could not be here. Feel free to ask questions as we're going through. if anything doesn't make sense. I just want to be able to control my own slides.
Sorry.
You're good.
It's all right.
Turn it back down, but I didn't-
So this is something you're presenting as what other cities are doing?
What we are doing.
What we're
So I'm not sure everybody knows what we do. I'm not sure I knew before I started talking to Keith.
So this is already something that's,
So let's talk about what the city does now,
Okay.
and then possibly what HPC could do to help prevent some demolition by neglect that you guys are seeing around the city going forward. 'Cause I think that was the original question. What else could we do? So this is what I had planned. Let's define what the issue is. We're going to try and quantify the issue in Lynchburg, talk about city staff's current efforts, what challenges they face to success, and then, again, what else HPC could do to help. All right, definition, and I'm just going to read this one. It's the practice of allowing a building to deteriorate to a point that demolition becomes necessary or restoration becomes unreasonable. So we're talking about a long-term problem, not just a quick demolition, which is what this next slide is about.
And before you leave that slide, that last, can you go back?
It's stuck. You can kind of see it. There we go.
Or restoration becomes unreasonable is a,
Pretty vague.
we have worked on historic properties that were a pile of bricks and became a building again. So unreasonable. I mean, we heard earlier today the economic argument of making a decision. And certainly a property owner is going to easily be able to say, well, it's going to cost me too much to rebuild that chimney or rebuild that end wall, and therefore the whole building needs to come down. So there definitely needs to be something that unreasonable is a totally undefined term. That
This is a definition I pulled off the internet.
Yeah,
It's
I'm
not
just-
officially set anywhere.
Yeah, I'm just saying, as we go down the road, if we
Yep.
want to get, again, using the word some teeth, that would be something
good
that we've
point.
got to put a strict definition on.
That's a good point. I think it's going to be subjective,
Yeah.
and unfortunately, it ends up being case by case, like a lot of what you do.
Yeah.
So I did research over the last 20 years, looked at all building permits for demolitions in historic districts, thought about any others I knew about, talked to building inspectors who had been here for 20 years, and I came up with a list of 9 buildings that have actually, primary structures that have been demolished. That does not include a shed in a backyard, but an actual primary designated historic structure. 5 of which are fires, 2 the HPC approved, and 2 were property maintenance concerns that either the judge or the building official ordered. Now, those aren't really the issue we're talking about. No, the slides are stuck. We're talking about that long-term deterioration.
Your PowerPoint's taking Valium.
It did need its Wheaties.
Yeah. The real issue are these long-term decaying properties, not the ones that poof went up in flames, really, because we don't know if that was a neglect issue or not. So trying another way to quantify this issue and figuring out a better indicator, I looked at our registered vacant property list or the properties that are deemed condemned, and took those down to the historic districts and came up with a list of 37 properties that meet either of those categories. And 4 actually have building permits for major renovations. So I believe like the Seven Hill School was on that list, but of course you guys have heard a number of COA applications and it's getting fixed up. I do have an interactive map if we wanted to dive into it, where you could actually look at these properties and see where they are. And it's stuck again.
It's my dinner. It's my wife.
No fancy transitions in this PowerPoint. I do not like those as a rule. So city staff, we're out there doing inspections all the time. I had no idea how many until I dug into it and started talking to Keith. They did 378 inspections of structures at 101 different addresses just in historic districts in fiscal year 19. I took out the cars, weeds, and trash inspections, but that adds even more times that city staff is looking at properties in the historic districts. Citywide, that's 5,502 inspections where they're looking at properties in a year, which is pretty impressive. So hopefully that throws out the window any concerns that city staff is just sitting around. Each of these has a data point in our tracking system. So with that, I'm actually going to turn it over to Keith to talk about how that inspection process actually goes, and then I'll take it back over after he's done.
Yes, I'm Keith Wright, property maintenance official. We get a lot of complaints. We're reactive in some nature and proactive in others. Once we do receive a complaint, it's just really a standard process. What's listed up here, a notice of violation is sent to the property owner. We have to post the property, we have to mail it, and then if they don't respond, the city will initiate action to clean up the property, in particular with properties that have junk cars, weeds, or trash. In housing cases, typically, unless it's just a boarding or securing of a property, we're either hiring a contractor or using inmate labor, we go to court. So that's kind of a standard sort of process when somebody calls in. And I'm going to try to get this to work because it wasn't working when I was trying to clear your.
It's not going to work, Keith. I'll have to click them for you.
Okay, thank you. Okay. We just labeled this inspection types. We kind of lumped them as categories into what we deal with on a regular basis. So property maintenance is a category enforced under the property maintenance code. We deal with a lot of interior complaints and also exterior complaints. Emergency situations is fire calls, a house catches on fire, a car runs into a structure, that type of thing, or storm events, tornado, that type of thing. The vacant property registration and the condemned property is sort of two different categories, but we kind of look at them sort of the same because we try to monitor both to determine which sort of program they kind of fall into. The rental program is a proactive program for rental property throughout the community development block grant area, which encompasses all of the historic districts, generally the outer downtown neighborhoods. Public nuisances, we get a lot of those, obviously, in our weed season. But we do, once the weeds sort of die out, sort of the trash complaints kind of move up, and then we try to be a little proactive on vehicles during that time frame. We also do walkthroughs, if you can step back one, walkthroughs in neighborhoods. Those really aren't complaints or categories, but we do have a sort of a proactive nature of doing walkthroughs in neighborhoods.
Now it's stuck. You made me go back.
Is it? Oh, wow. Click, click. So, yeah, so property maintenance cases, those are sort of a total consolidation of the cases that we deal with over the years 14 through 18. And they're generally by complaint. If we get a case at 510 whatever street, A Street, and you look next door, we will certainly pick those up because the last thing we want is the property owner next, they get a letter and then next door, we try to beat them a little bit to the punch. But primarily they are by complaint. So those are the numbers. It's generally a little bit down in the past 2 years, and we've been able to do IT did what would you call it, Ann? IT put together a list on a computer database with the number of housing complaints related to rental properties. I'll show you another slide later that will further describe that.
Just before you said you go by complaint, so there's not if a neighbor didn't complain, if a citizen didn't complain, the building could be falling down and nothing could be, you all would have no reason to on a drive-by see it.
Let me get to that as we
Okay.
progress,
All right.
because that might answer some and
Sure.
not all, but some of that. If we could switch to
Maybe.
the next one. So, might have to refer to this here from now on. So, a lot of the complaints on the exterior are typical, this type of nature, or a gutter falling, anything structural, a tree falling into a house, that type of thing. We work with property owners to try to reach that type of compliance, even on vacant properties, condemned properties, just looking what we call exterior compliant. If it's exterior compliant, there's nobody living there, we've sort of reached a goal. We still monitor it, but we sort of have reached a goal from the exterior of the property. On the interior of the property, the next slide, we get a number of calls from tenants in particular. A lot of homeowners don't tell on themselves. But we do get a lot of tenants who call us on conditions similar to these on a very regular basis where and fire, we get fire calls. We get where there's response to anything that the fire department might respond to. The police department on raids, on any reason that they're going into a house, social services. We also follow any structure that has been damaged. This particular chart here is showing fire cases and vehicle cases in the red, the storm damage cases that we follow from recent storms that we've had. A lot of that is tracked now, in particular because of FEMA reporting for disasters. And so we have a team, our department is assigned an assessment team, which includes the whole department all the way through the department. We are the assessment team for the city of Lynchburg on storm damage events. That, I think the last one, just as an example,
Keep going.
if it works, it was the flooding, the
big high one?
Yes, and so that was the flooding event. The one we did, we helped out Appomattox in their storm event. The previous one was, I think, Derecho.
Derecho, right?
Yeah, and so if you saw, some of those cases have dwindled down over the years, and then now we've picked back up, and those cases have gotten down to a manageable level at this point. But we do track them to make sure that people don't come back and live in houses that have been damaged to this type of degree and have been condemned for that reason. So, vacant building registration is fairly new as far as activity. It used to be a very nominal fee of, I think, $25. Over time, it's gone up to $100 on a registration for vacant property. Vacant property is really a piece of property that's been tracked as vacant for a year, and the utilities have been turned off for 6 months, so water, electricity. And then we track those on a quarterly basis. So throughout the city, including the historic districts, there's a number of them in the historic district, and I can't remember how many was it?
101 addresses, but I
Yeah.
don't know. Oh, 37
37
that were on vacant
that
or
we track
condemned lists.
as registered in the historic districts. And then we're tracking others as we go, but we found that a number of people transfer properties, people are fixing up. So it's kind of a moving target, but that's a general, a good number to kind of go
Who
off of.
registers these?
The property owner has to register, yes. And if we find them, we tell them they have to. Yeah. The numbers are here. 17 was kind of the start of the vacant property, the new, what I call sort of the new era of vacant property registering or monitoring. There was 209 that were found, but we actually did an activity, an assessment activity, a storm assessment activity using like radios, everything with fire, police, to track vacant structures. So we encompassed the entire city to find out as many as we could. We use a lot of water billings, reports from AEP, things like that, to determine whether or not it's really vacant, that we can consider it vacant or not. A property can be vacant and have the power and water turned on, but not be in the registration. But we do track those, if that makes sense. We do find a number of properties that transfer, and so hopefully we're not having somebody come in and just transfer the ownership to hide from us, but really getting a new property owner in to renovate buildings such as these. And we have had both.
I was thinking about it.
So
Went back to the
yeah,
period and
that's
skipped
fine.
one.
And this is kind of, we kind of lump it in as a proactive sort of program, because we are on those properties without complaints. It's tracked quarterly. Did we jump on?
No.
Or we
No.
good?
That's it.
Okay. The rental inspection program, I just noticed something, RIP program. Sorry, it's getting late. So this is a proactive program, not on complaints. This is totally proactive as opposed to a housing complaint that might come in more reactive to a complaint. So anybody in the rental district, which is the community development block grant, you may hear it more commonly known as CDBG area, the more distressed area, the older aging housing stock that's been approved by council, and this is in the darker shade of pink, red, whatever color that is. Primarily the downtown area, all of the historic districts are in those areas that I'm aware about. And so the target in those areas is on rental inspections. We've got pretty solid where we can put our hands on about, I'll just say 4,000 for rounded numbers. Rental properties in the city, and we're trying to get to about 1,000 of those a year, because we're looking for a 4-year waiver, if this makes sense, that every year, if you have a perfect program, in 4 years, you would rotate those rental units every 4 years in hopes that they did get a 4-year waiver. Not all of them get a 4-year waiver. We do work with them, and we do go look at some properties on an annual basis until we feel like they've reached a point to get a 4-year waiver. There's a fee associated with it, and we have utilized, there used to be one person doing all the inspections. Her name is Dana Horn. She's sort of our rental manager, but there's, I think there's 4 more of us. Yeah, 4 more of us that handle 1 day a week. So we've been able to increase our numbers. And I think the next chart, yes, the next chart kind of shows sort of a general trend over a 10-year cycle, that the more rental we do, the bottom dash line, decreases the number of housing cases that we get.
Mm-hmm.
Some years are higher, some years are lower, but that was an IT chart, and they came up with, I don't know if that's a median or a, there you go, thank you. But it does show a general trend over that period that doing these proactive programs has reduced our housing complaints. Other reasons why we might be in different areas of the city, including the historic districts, are what we sort of lump together as public nuisance. You can see the numbers, pretty active, especially during the growing season where we have a lot of grass complaints. But these are where the city does have a team who inspects, cites, abates, actually goes out and abates the property, bills the property owner for the work, unlike court. We do not, I think my first case, we have an illegal dumping case that is so bad that our crew can't get in there without probably really destroying the property with a bobcat. And so we felt like we needed to have a court decision on this. Other than that, though, that's in November, middle of November. We will be handling that case through the courts. All the others, I just can't remember the last time that we've gone to court on this type of case. Housing complaints are a little different. Example of a weed case. Next.
It's trying.
Yeah. And it is called the weed ordinance. This is a vehicle case. You can see the difference. And of course, trash. So kind of the reason that I brought, if you could back up. Yeah. So you might not think that this really has any, you wouldn't think initially that this has anything to do with structures, but everybody is trained on what to look for. So my point here with these slides is, yeah, historic districts have weeds, cars, trash, just like the rest of the city. But the point here is that when they're on the property looking and inspecting these properties, they're able to be in the historic districts, looking at properties, trying to be proactive with, we can only look at stuff from the street, or if somebody invites us on, but the point here is that there is a proactive sort of component going on, that if we see a window, a door, something falling on a house next door, that we can turn it into a housing case. That's just, the owners, and I want to back up one more, I want to stay there if we can. The owners are billed for the work, so you might not think that anybody is involved really in the process, but there's kind of this other, it's kind of like if we're approaching a property just because they have weeds, that's one thing, but they get a bill for it. And if they don't pay it, it turns into a tax collection if they continue to not pay it. Well, before long, if they really don't pay the first one at $250, then there's a second one. And sometimes we're getting to them 3 times a year, so in a year's time, it's $750 at minimum if it's just an hour's job. So my point here is billings and collections is kind of working behind the scenes for us, collecting the money. And they're kind of poking them, saying, hey, we're still around, we're still around. You might try to get away with not paying it, but we're still around. And that also happens with trash. The collections will go after, they go after their tax refund checks. If you're not paying, if you go to renew your license out at DMV, guess what? You're going to get a DMV stop. We're still around. So there's a lot of little components that are kind of working. Not one in particular is going to make a property move, but hopefully with the consolidation of all of these efforts, eventually they're going to kind of either fix up their properties or perhaps even sell it to, and it ends up on the auction blocks. We have a tax delinquent attorney that goes after properties if they meet a threshold for years of non-payment of taxes, and if they, and there's an amount that they if it's $50, they're not going to go headstrong over it and put it on the tax delinquent sale, because it just costs too much to get the value out of it. But the point is that there's a number of properties every year, and they try to get 2 tax sales a year on the courthouse steps. They're going up for auction. Mm-hmm. And a lot of these have weed bills, trash bills, whatever we do bills type of thing.
So when you're talking about as far as proactiveness, say Victoria over there is homeowner A,
Mm-hmm.
and you got B and C. Victoria A calls you all on B that they have trash all over their yard. You show up and you look at, yeah, that's a lot of trash. Oh, you look over the fence and see homeowner C with all that stuff. You can cite them
Mm-hmm.
without
without a complaint.
Without a complaint.
Sure.
Okay.
So there is a proactive nature in it.
Yeah.
But the reason that we got there in the first place was reactive. So I don't really count that as
Mm-hmm.
being,
Sure.
in a sort of that type of approach.
Understood.
What's the period of time that the city attorney will go after someone for non-payment of these violations, which I guess turn into taxes, or what do they turn into? All these amounts. I mean, isn't it years before they go after them?
It has to reach a threshold, right, Keith?
Yeah, and
Versus
this
the
is
value
all
of the
through billings
property.
and collections. It's not my specialty.
Okay.
But they work with the city attorney's office to build that list, okay? But we have a tax delinquent attorney out of Richmond. I think his name is Harold Black. Anyway, he's an attorney who specializes in these properties. And depending on the amount that's owed, is it worth it to go after that property and sell it on the courthouse steps? That's what he's there for. If the assessment on the property is $1,000 and they owe $2,000, you're already behind. You're not going to sell it on the courthouse steps for 10. You're going to sell it on the courthouse for a nominal amount and not be able to recoup what you've got in it.
Mm-hmm.
So you just let it sit in that case and fall?
No, well, and see, that's kind of one of my points. We're trying to build over time with our programs, what we do. I mean, we're a small division, but some properties in the city, government is not the answer, 100%. That we deal with deceased, and I've got a slide later that kind of talks to these points. But this might be the best time to talk about it. So sometimes we've got deceased people, we've got out-of-state people. They can be challenging, those cases, because we need to get a hold of somebody to either bring them to court or, yeah, I mean, it can be very challenging. This is sort of that slide. The number one is at the top, people transfer properties, dealing with, and then the other two, out-of-state and deceased property owners. It is one of the biggest challenges to going after a piece of property and a property owner to make them do something. But we do over time have, with everybody sort of pitching in, if you will, get some of these hard cases we get. And it doesn't happen overnight, but we're basically build a case. One man's junk is another's treasure. You might not like what she does on her property, and you might think it's a violation, so you call us. Another challenge. It's our way. We try to educate people on what we can and can't do. Mm-hmm. Sometimes we might not be able to do what you want us to do to her, and you might not understand it, but the code is very specific in Virginia as to what you can and can't do.
Sure.
Violations and aesthetics move to the exact same thing. There's no code against aesthetics except in the historic districts on colors, right? So that can be a big private disputes. We get in the middle of probably every one. We're in the middle of something. A landlord not liking the tenant or vice versa. And then, of course, there's limited resources, both at the government level and the private level. Weather, of course, especially on exterior properties, and I'll call it storm events, can be very challenging. But I kind of want to go back just real briefly, just to reiterate if I didn't make it real clear, but, government doesn't have all the answers to this. And I think that's an important point, that why you guys are sort of in place. I mean, if we could team up, I think that's part of why we're here, is it not? To try to figure out sort of a partnership, to try to figure out, okay, if government can't do it, what can we do together to be a little bit more, proactive on some of these cases where a chimney might fall because of lightning or just because of neglect. Mm-hmm. What can we do together to gain a better understanding, so that you understanding what we can do, what we can't, and vice versa, what you guys are capable of at your level. Mm-hmm. And any other group. I mean, not just you guys, but we're getting ready to have a walkthrough up in Federal Hill on Wednesday. We're trying to build that bridge. We've been up there before. Neil Bonner and those guys, Stacy Meyer, we're going up there on Wednesday, hoping to build a bridge. We're going to do a walkthrough. It'll all be on camera, just like they all are. We're calling it a mini walkthrough. We did one last month where were we?
Where'd you guys go last month?
Where were we?
Daniels?
We did a walkthrough in Polk.
Okay.
Yeah, somewhere over there.
You guys think about it.
Yeah, I'll call it College Hill. How about that?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yeah.
Thanks, Keith. Before we dive into what HPC could help us with, if you see a house or a structure that is a property maintenance concern for you, I wanted you to know what you can do, and this is for any citizen who's watching too. First, I would say check each racket. All those inspections that we log in, they're all available for everyone to view. If you go to that link at each racket, you can search an address and find out if we already have a case on it, and you can see the current status. Now, if you don't think what you're seeing is covered, then you can go to our website and make sure that it really is a violation, and know who to contact. And then number 3 there's how you can report it. 856 City, or there's actually a new City of Lynchburg app where you can go on the app on your phone, take a picture of the issue, and submit it, and it'll get routed to the right group. Whether it's like a clogged storm drain or it's a property maintenance concern, any of those kind of issues can be logged in on the city app. All right, so now back to our main discussion. It's been since June since we started talking about this, so I've had a few months to kind of stew on it a little bit. And it kind of comes down to this. There are two ways to get these houses that are in historic districts fixed up. City enforcement's one of them, but it's not always the most effective. It certainly has its challenges and its limitations. We're gonna have a lot more success if owners are choosing to fix up their property. And that comes down to kind of overall neighborhood revitalization, and what kind of advocacy can we do to kind of spur people to want to do it.
Some of this comes down, and I don't want to interrupt.
Yeah.
And I've seen this with young people that are interested in being in the historic district, but then say, I can't afford it. You know, the houses are cheap, but I can't afford what it takes to fix them up according to the guidelines. So we talked about that earlier. We're not supposed to consider the cost of things, but the reality is you have buildings falling down and houses falling down and people who would like to fix them up but have limited income.
Right.
You know, if you're in your mid-20s or early 30s and have children and you'd love to have an old house, what do? You know, and I don't know what the answer to that is, because I think we are obligated to maintain certain standards and to maintain certain, you know,
Right.
call the balls and strikes, not do whatever. But what, you know, I have in the last probably year and a half, 2 years, talked to a number of young couples who have seen stuff and would be so excited to do stuff, but they just like, you know, we're limited to what we can do.
So
and
do they know about the available incentives?
No.
So that's advocacy. That's something they don't know about. It
And
might
I
help
didn't know
them
to
bridge
tell
the
them
gap
that,
between
so,
what they can
yeah.
afford and what they want to do and what the historic districts, you know, suggest they should do.
And there's a other end of that same spectrum, and Victoria sent 2 roofing guys to talk to me about a month ago. They had been in a historic district house, an 80-year-old man, not a millennial. His roof is leaking. It's a slate roof. He cannot afford to repair the slate even. We wouldn't approve a asphalt shingle roof going back on it, which maybe he could. He certainly couldn't afford faux slate, which we could approve. So he's sitting there with a leaking roof that's damaging the interior, that's gonna slowly rot the house, that's slowly gonna fall down. And a historic district is going to keep him from repairing. He could possibly put asphalt shingles on the house.
In this one case, it actually worked out because there was a second roof underneath the existing roof that also had slate tiles, so they're using those. But yes, your principle is the same.
Yeah, I mean, there are times when the historic district is going to bite the situation in the butt and not allow
Right. And
that
so
to happen.
I don't know what the answer to that, talking about incentives, I just saw that one of the things I saw in here was that work with banks to confirm low-interest loans available to people in historic districts. I don't know, I didn't know that was even really available. So part of it's educating us, but I think it's also educating the public, you know?
So,
you know.
So I took those 2 big ideas on how these houses get fixed up and made a little chart here. Over on the left side, you've got city enforcement. There are a couple things maybe we could do better. I came up with the idea of, well, you guys could all go out to your advocacy districts, look at them, flag any properties, and we can make a priority list and hand it over to property maintenance for enforcement going forward. The other thing would be the HPC secretary or commissioners could actually accompany the property maintenance officials when they go to the courts for enforcement action, and make sure what's being decided by a judge is in accordance with the guidelines. For example, this chimney. I'm going to go with Keith in November to talk to the judge and advocate that that owner be required to repair the chimney instead of tear it down because of the safety issue. So that's, it'd be nice if we had more than just one staff member from City Hall going to advocate for the historic districts in that way. So that's, yeah,
If
go
I
ahead.
could just tag team on that, we've had this is a long, long court case that we've been dealing with, but there's been a fine on this one property owner that I've never seen before, when about 18 neighbors showed up from the historic district. Probably know who I'm talking about, but the reaction from the judge was unbelievable.
In a positive way or negative?
In a positive way for the neighborhood.
Not for the owner, for the neighborhood.
Right, not for the owner.
The owner doesn't particularly care for it.
All right, on the other side of the chart, which I think
It
is
does
where
pay
you
off.
guys are headed anyway, Keith actually came up with this idea when we were talking. Prepare a toolkit for guidance
sound
to owners. Well, you're not thinking about historic districts day in, day
Think
out.
about everything.
Of course Keith came up with this idea.
The man some props.
Anyway, it would be a guide to help homeowners kind of navigate the process so they could learn about the incentives, learn about what would be approved, what would not be approved, any other tricks to the trade that I don't know, but you guys do. That might go a long way. And then you've got this little booklet in your hand maybe, and you could actually go out and meet with the different neighborhood groups, do some education with contractors, anybody. You've got your priority list of properties, contact the property owners. Keith, you've had a few experiences where, city enforcement's not worked, but talking to the property owner, the neighbors talking to the
Hey, look,
property
there's a
owner.
reason we stopped calling ourselves code enforcement.
Yeah.
Code compliance. And education is a huge piece that is very successful, not in all cases, and we do enforce when we need to, but the point is, we're not out stroking tickets because it's a violation.
Right.
We're trying to find answers.
I've got on here, talk with banks and make sure that low-interest construction loans are available in these districts. I don't know if that's an issue or not. I think that was something else, Keith, you raised, that it could be. Working with nonprofits. There is CDBG money that goes to nonprofits in the area to fix up houses in areas that are historic districts, but also not. I think those nonprofits tend to steer away from the historic districts because they're afraid of the expense. Is there a way we could work with them to kind of teach them, what's the most efficient way to fix up the properties with the funds they have available? After that, I'm open to other suggestions. I do have a few long-term considerations that if, the short-term, what we could do right now is not enough. Come on, slides. More that we could think about. One would be securing versus stabilizing structures. So right now, if there's a house that's vacant, our staff will go out and we will secure a structure to prevent harm to human life. We're not going to stabilize it and actually prevent water damage or any other, wind damage, any of that. That would take a lot more investment in that program in order to be able to do that kind of work, and staff to manage it as well. The receivership program, that's been talked about every now and then throughout the years. I don't think it's very popular, but it's out there. State code has enabled it. Localities or land banks can fix properties and actually bill the owner for the repairs. But again, a significant budget that we would need, council would need to approve that. It would be a big program to undertake, but it's out there and available. Other things I've heard from both staff and citizens, it's difficult to find qualified contractors at reasonable prices. You guys have heard that plenty. You could consider revising the guidelines to allow alternate building materials. I don't think you really want to, but that's that cost issue that's out there. Considering zoning changes, here's another one that I don't think is going to be very popular, but a lot of these houses are big, they're ornate. How affordable it is to maintain them comes down to, how many people can you get in it. And most of our districts are zoned for single household use. And so if you were to consider multiple units in these structures, maybe that would make it affordable for the owners to maintain it.
That's what happened in the 70s.
And then you get houses that are divided up and you're going to get changes to the exterior that I'm not sure you would want to approve.
Yeah.
A number of districts were downzoned as recently as 2006 to actually prevent, I guess, rental landlords from not maintaining their structures and try and get them owner occupied.
I think the worst thing for these historic homes is when you turn them into residential, into rentals. You know,
Possibly. We do have our rental inspection program now, which we
Well,
didn't have before.
Look at Diamond Hill, what happened to it, and all those historic districts, Daniels Hill,
Yeah.
for that matter.
I bring it up because, it's part of the discussion, the affordability of these really big ornate homes. And that's pretty much it. I think we're working on it, improving relationships with owners and applicants and not making coming to HBC so scary, and how do we work with them a little bit better.
I think step one is something that we could do, and we could maybe set it to do it in the coming year, and it seems like a little thing, but it's to develop that toolkit that includes information about contractors, but also includes information about the incentives, that comes in a booklet and is put out and available. We have a new owners in the historic district, we approved send them one of those things with everyone, and with the name and phone number of the advocate for their particular section. It's a little thing, but it's a doable thing that we could do, and I'm saying that because I think that the Lynchburg Historical Foundation they're getting ready to do a strategic planning, and they might be willing to add that as something they'd be willing to help with.
We do send a letter to new owners every month. It doesn't have the toolkit. It says who the advocates are. It says, welcome to the historic districts. Here are the rules.
Right.
Here's who to contact with questions.
But things like common activities, contacts, recommended contractors, tips for getting construction loans if we have. That would be a very small thing, just some way to make people feel more welcome. But that needs to be something that can go out beyond just to the new owners, because I think it's something that needs to be available, maybe just on the website or something. I don't know, do you all tell me, do banks have particular low-income loans for historic districts? And do any of our banks do that?
I don't think it's specific for historic districts. I'm a little concerned, are they not approving them in the historic districts and approving them elsewhere in the city?
I don't know that answer, but certainly banks are required because of, I think I'm saying this correctly, federal regulations require that they invest not just in nice neighborhoods, but in all, even in low-income neighborhoods. I forget the exact term, red zones.
I was trying to think of it earlier.
Yeah,
but there is a percentage requirement.
Yeah, they have to invest across the board and not just where they think they get the best return if they're using federal dollars, which they are. So that's certainly something that would be an incentive.
Is it my understanding that if someone complains about a property, and I say, look, the porch is unsafe, the steps are unsafe, but you can't go on it. You can only look at it visually. Is that correct? And so when can you get on the property?
We go by route of a mailman. It's kind of the best way to describe it. If it's in the rear and you can see it from your yard and you point it to me, giving me permission to view it from your yard, then yeah, we can address it. But if you've just gone back there and sneaking around, and you really, and I can't see it, and you won't let me on your property, but I know it's back there and I have a picture, well, you took the picture and that's yours, not mine. My review can only be at that point from the road, public property, sidewalk, right-of-ways. Now, if we go into an alley, if there's a public alley, we can view from public alleys. But yeah, it would depend on the case, obviously, but if you can see it by going up to the door and knocking on it and see if it's somebody's home and it's citable, then it can be cited, yes.
If it's a, can you be invited onto the property by a tenant?
Yes.
Okay.
And lots of times we are.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
By John, and authorize a search too. So
Many times.
you have a right to be there. You have a right to,
Right.
I think the other thing is walking around and identifying the properties and reaching out to the people who own them individually. But that's, again, does anybody on here have time to do that? The city doesn't have any more time to have people to do that. So all these things, anything we do is gonna take a little bit of effort. where would you like us to concentrate on first? I mean, what do y'all see as the most important things?
I don't have a targeted area that I would suggest, but we do have this map.
How many of us?
I mean, you could look at where the vacant and condemned structures are.
Don't we all?
Two, I don't. It was me, just three of us. I mean, there's plenty in Daniels Hill.
Yes.
One's being completely renovated. Several of them have been completely renovated.
Keith,
What was I going to say? Sorry. It went away.
Question in terms of, and I'm thinking that, I kind of yelled about this back in June, thinking of one, there was a brick warehouse over off of 12th Street that was a Civil War era hospital, if I'm remembering correctly, and the back wall collapsed, and then the whole building was, I guess, inspected by a structural engineer and said could not be repaired, and it was torn down. And I think that was an issue of demolition by neglect. So first of all, somebody should have turned it in. This was a long time ago, so we're a little different situation. But I want to get to the structural engineer that comes on site and says this building should be condemned and torn down. The American Institute of Architects has a program. It's a part of the disaster program when Petersburg got hit by the tornado downtown. They had a number of historically based architects that deal with those type of structures that came in, as opposed to just, it's easy to say, well, dang, the whole back wall is gone and that thing, just, you need to tear that down. Where people that deal with historic structures on a day-in basis, on a professional level, can look at it and say, sure,
nothing.
Stabilize this, stabilize that, rebuild it, bam, you're back in business. So I guess my question is, when you get to an extreme situation, do you have who do you turn to make that analysis, determination, sign something that says tear it down, as opposed to?
Go to by building official.
Building official, so.
And then he gets structural engineer reports.
And again, particularly if it's in a historic district, maybe that person, maybe there's that American Institute of Architects list that could be a resource to inspections, to think about, let's get Fred Smith, who's out of Richmond or, out of Roanoke or out of Lynchburg, to come on site and give us an opinion, as opposed to just taking, going to the phone book and say, or somebody that's on a term contract that does structural work, okay, I can tell you that the bridge is going to fall down, but is this historic building really going to fall down? And can it be rebuilt? And I guess it goes back a little bit to earlier, that very first line about reasonable repair, because again, if the person's intent is to get the building off his property so he can sell the piece of property at a better rate than he can this old building, they're going to say it's not reasonable for me to repair it. Yet, in the historic district, is there a different definition of reasonable?
I don't think there is.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why I think they would go before a board of 7 people to have a discussion about it and determine what's reasonable. And then if they don't like your decision, they could appeal it to city council.
I mean, he's right. If you have an owner and say, look, my building collapsed, and he's hiring an engineer, he's gonna say, look, I just wanna tear this thing down. What do you think? Well, right away, the engineer knows what the owner wants. So he's gonna come in and he's gonna say, well, yeah, it's not worth it. But then a building in the historic district would have a different value to, not only monetary value, but a value to the city, to the neighborhood.
The rest of the structures in the neighborhood, yeah.
Right, and so I guess what I'm saying is you just can't go by an engineer's report. Maybe in that particular case, in a historic district, you need someone, an engineer who deals in historic structures and who's sensitive to, what they are to the city as a whole and to the community.
Just a,
And we have Ann breathing down our neck all the time.
Who?
Tom, now Victoria.
We're not engineers.
Don't tear it down.
Right.
No, I mean, we understand.
I mean, I think that's maybe where some of you come in. Certainly if we're going to court, we could invite you guys along. When the building official's determining it, I'm not so sure.
I used to be on a demolition team, okay? Where, it was, that was back in the day. I've been here 26 years. And we have, in the past 20 years, it's been 5, and because, two of them are fire. We're a lot more sensitive to that side of the coin than we used to be. Back in the 70s, it was, where do you stop the bulldozer? So,
That's kind of where I'm getting at.
yeah, that world is different. And are we sensitive to it? Yeah, historic stuff is like, everybody, look at what has happened downtown. We used to call it, turn the camera on, the mass exodus from downtown. Nobody wanted to be here. Look what's happened. It's the same way in the historic districts, just as any other neighborhood. If it makes sense, it makes sense. The last thing we want to do is go to court or tear something down. But when something's wobbling, when there's a safety issue, we are there to protect. If it gets to that point, we do have to make a call. I think it might be worth looking into, maybe a specialized engineer in a case like that, who is a little bit maybe more sensitive. That's certainly something. That's not just making a phone call. But I think it's a different time, a different place these days, and I think we as a team back here kind of understand it. Yeah.
I'd agree. There's a reason the chimney's still there. It hasn't been demolished yet. I don't have a specific goal for you guys today. I was hoping you guys would come away with a couple action items or direct staff to do any other work. Or you could punt till your next meeting and
I think your
discuss again.
toolkit idea is, what's available to a potential buyer or an existing owner that could help them monetarily.
Could you all get together what lists you have, like lists of contractors we've talked about, whatever those kinds of things are, then go and what you know about what's available for incentives.
I think the incentives are the biggies.
Yeah, and then we can research that further, because I think that's a huge thing, is incentives. And we need to think outside the box, so all of us in the next month need to think outside the box about potential other programs you've heard of, like you were talking about the older people. There may be programs out there to help elderly people in their homes. Now, would it pay for a slate roof? But it might pay to fix a slate roof or to repair a slate roof, if not replace a slate roof.
There's definitely one.
There used to be a couple of those around.
I was at a housing conference in Richmond a couple of weeks ago, and I wrote a note to myself to go find the name of that. I think it's a state program, maybe a federal program, that helps homeowners. And I was thinking about the situation that Victoria and the contractors were talking to me about, that I need to find the name of it, Home Up. I don't know what it is to see. I think it's similar to CDBG, that the city would have to apply to. So I'm going to find that and
Please do.
and send that to you guys.
Yeah, and the key is to write it from the perspective of the new owner, or the owner that all of a sudden wants to do the work on their house. Like with tax credits, it's important that they know they've got to get approval up front. And that needs to be one of the first lines in the toolkit on that program, that they need to get approval before they start any work.
And that's something I'm sure any of these new homeowners don't even realize is out there, by these tax credits.
Right, you get 25% on on single-family homes.
But you have to
You
have
have
a
to
margin
spend-
for the tax credits. They don't do you
Yeah.
damn bit of good unless you
You
sell
also
to
have to
somebody.
spend-
So
and you're
how-
not
so
gonna
how
get
do you make that
one-to-one
work?
You also
for it.
have
Yeah.
to spend a certain amount of money.
Yeah.
And that's a pretty big amount of money
Yeah.
for
Certain
somebody who doesn't have
viable.
any money.
So just laying out what those
But-
things are.
But another program, I don't know if it's still in existence, there was a program through Habitat for Humanity, which we do have here in Lynchburg, and they used to have a program that went in and assisted the elderly or low income in rehabbing. I don't know if they still have that program at all, but that's be worth checking with them to see.
That was the home program and
The Habitat, yeah. It was
They
like
had
a
down
rehab program through
payment, closing
Habitat.
cost assistance,
Mhm.
they had renovation.
And they would maybe help paint or.
Lynchburg has weatherization
Yeah.
if you qualify financially.
Yeah.
So all these, let's put these together and then find out what the
There's a
details
whole,
of
with the
these
city
things.
has a whole, I bet on the website, Dana, on her website, has a list of all of them. I mean, all the homework's there, you just gotta pull it together.
Yep.
Yeah.
Pull all that stuff together with a brief description and where to go and how to do, because I think that would be super helpful.
Sure.
Also,
Every-
there are things that are expensive. I mean, we're kind of all picky about our windows. We've been through a lot of that stuff because they're so integral to the historic nature of a home. But you can paint and scrape your windows. It's not easy, but you know what I mean? So some incentive for your own sweat equity in a place, you know? For young people.
It might be a little bit of how to do it.
Yeah.
I'm looking at my old windows and I'm not exactly sure what to do.
Yeah, well, then that's.
I know who to call, though.
That's a good point. Not everybody, listen, I had a young man who's 25, 6 years old. I gave him an electric drill, a screwdriver, he didn't even know how to use it. I showed him how to use it. So, maybe, Home Depot has these classes, Lowe's has these classes, could the city have such a thing? That you could show somebody how to scrape and paint a window, or to something really simple. I mean, people just, you know how to do it, but not everybody knows how to do that, or even has the equipment, can afford the equipment to do it. Is that something we could help them do?
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, I mean, I know it's not easy, but we should be able to pull together at least what information's out there and what is available. And maybe in that way, see the holes and figure out a way that we could advocate for filling some of those holes.
If I could chime in here, and I know I'm probably out of place, that she's gonna only be able to do so much on the government end, nonprofit end. I mean, I see 7 people, Shannon's not here, but all of y'all have contacts. You obviously have somebody from construction. I know you got somebody, I mean, you're your own, but, I mean, somebody's gotta have a banker friend, somebody's gotta have an insurance friend, somebody's gotta have, some kind of, somebody that you can pick a category and go tap into to find out what the, Reinvestment Act or whatever it's called is, to get a better understanding of what it is. I used to be, they do have it, and I know the name of it, but I've been so out of it for so long. I did it for businesses, and I used to approach about 7 banks to form a loan program for businesses at a low interest. And, maybe they don't have one, but maybe they want to do one. It might be worth that type of connection, and I think from a private side, she's going to be able to do so much. Victoria.
Why was you talking about pulling them together, what information we have, and then
Oh, I
filling?
get it.
us
Yeah, and we
figuring
can
out
feed
ways
you
to
what
fill
we
the
have. I
holes.
know,
Yeah.
I'm always in awe of how much Rick has in his head, but also not only what he's capable of, but the people he knows and has worked with that can do stuff. Your Rolodex must be, 10,000 names long. But yeah.
But you know the worst thing is, the people who own these houses, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And they won't do anything to them, they don't rent them, they just sit and rot. And so I can call you and say, look, boom, boom, look at this is gonna be fixed. But they're just gonna do the absolute minimum that they have to do to meet the code, and it's almost better for them not to do anything.
It's a tax write-off. Some, I know we have some, in the neighborhood where our museum is.
No, no, these people that I'm talking about, they're not tax write-offs. I don't know what their incentive is.
Well, I know that the people that next door to me, the house that George redid, sat empty for about 6 or 7 years, even after Marie had moved to, after Henry was put in the nursing home in Virginia Beach, and she moved to Virginia Beach and bought a little house there. She just couldn't let go. They couldn't talk her into letting go of that house. I mean, and they ended up, it was in horrible shape when George got it, but so, you know, she's just an older person who wasn't willing to let go of the home she lived in for 40 years and raised her children no matter what.
Well, you know, these are homes that I'm talking about that the owner, I have never seen anyone at this house ever, except when I complained about it, and they came and did whatever the officials said they have to do, and that was that. Never saw them again, there's never anyone there. There are rodents, there are cats living there, and it's a nice house. And, well, there's two of them, there's right, you know, right in the other guy, I don't know what, you know, I've asked him to buy it. You know, he just doesn't, you know, no. Comes, mows his lawn, just, you know, puts a for sale sign up, because I think that, isn't there something with the city that says if you have a for sale sign, you can't.
You're not forced to do work to it? Is that true?
See, this is perfect. I love it. Because there are so many misconceptions about exactly what you said and what we really do. So people put trash cans in front of license plates, okay? You know what I'm saying? They put for sale signs up in front of vacant houses.
With no number.
They put, yeah, so they'll try any trick.
Yeah.
And a lot of people have this sort of feeling like, well, if I just do this, the city's not going to be able to mess with me. And you already have that opinion, but that's nothing. You put a for sale sign up, a judge is going to look at you and say, come on, really? We don't allow it. They can do it, you know. We can't tell them not to, but we don't encourage it. We don't put it out there as a solution. They're just trying to keep us off their back. They try.
I guess my point was, and I could be totally wrong, that if you have a for sale sign on your property, then the city cannot enforce.
No, sir.
That's not true.
No, sir.
So the for sale sign means nothing.
Means nothing.
Okay.
It's just like the value of a if you got to put $1 million roof on and you can't afford it, you got to put $1 million roof on. It's just what it is.
I mean, you know what I'm talking about, probably.
Yeah.
You know, he puts a for sale sign with no number, just a for sale sign.
We just had another one do that.
Yeah.
That's in court. And been in court.
All right, Victoria and I have our marching orders. Are there any other questions for Keith while we have him here? I can always invite him back. Not sure if I'd get him again at 7:45 at night.
We're very thankful.
Yeah, all right.
We want to be here talking
Yeah,
to
thank
you.
you. Yeah,
Absolutely.
appreciate it. Yeah,
Most
thanks.
definitely. Thanks, everybody, for hanging in there.
Thanks for coming.
Meeting adjourned?
Adjourned.